I hereby call to order this meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on August 27th, 2025 at 7 p.m. I am Linda Lukovsky, Chair of the School Committee, and I want to welcome everyone here tonight. A reminder that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families and the wider community, who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners. Students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Back in April, the school committee nominated Narissa for the MASC Lifetime Achievement Award. We got a response from MASC. On behalf of the MASC Board of Directors, I am letting you know that Narissa has been selected to receive MASC's Lifetime Achievement 2025 Award. This honor recognizes your contributions to the children of the Triton Regional Public School District, both through your years of service as a school committee member, as well as through the many activities in which you have participated as an advocate for children. So it's an honor and a privilege that we nominated you, and we're lucky to have you on our board. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item is oral communications from the public. I don't know, did you want to say something? No.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes longer with the permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. The agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee? The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains 3 donations tonight. Thank you to the Triton Educational Foundation for donating $1,000 for playground equipment and supplies at Salisbury Elementary School, and to the Weston family in Honda North for donating $10,000 apiece toward the district's instrumental music program. The consent agenda includes 2 overnight and out-of-state field trip requests. Salisbury Elementary requests planning permission for 6th grade ecology camp in November, and Newbury Elementary requests final permission for 6th grade ecology camp October 6th through the 10th.
Ready? I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Oh, Linda, could you pull out the June 11th minutes for discussion?
Okay.
Should probably do that now because there's no. Just gonna say we could probably do that now because there's no future agenda item that I can think of that would address that.
What is it that you're,
I'm sorry.
what is it that you're,
I just wanted to talk about the new business in those minutes.
okay.
Can you hand those up, please? So under number 2, it has a sentence about Mr. Lee's noted, and I'm struggling with what that means.
I believe this was a very pointed comment that you made following the public comment that night by Mr. Cullen.
Well, I actually went back and looked at the minutes, and I reviewed them, and it had to do with my request about class size at the high school. And I wanted specificity about the class size, and we went through a big discussion of that. And it was agreed by Brian that he would present the materials at either August or at the September workshop.
That's in the next set of minutes, I believe. This one was where you initially requested it. We didn't have a discussion. We had a discussion on the next agenda, right? Because we can't discuss new business in the same agenda that someone requests new business because of posting, right? We have to post anything that we intend to have a full discussion on 48 hours in advance.
Right.
Right? So we discussed that in,
This was that discussion. I think
This was the discussion.
because it says to discussion prior new business. It was raised in May, I believe, and then this was the
okay.
discussion.
So all I'm asking is if we could modify the minutes to reflect what actually I said, and that was, I was asking the administration to create a report at the high school level about each class size and the number of students in it, with the exception of SPED.
so I'd have to go back and look at this, but was this not the meeting where you made the very pointed comment at Mr. Cullen to lead off your? So I think that's what that refers to, is Mr. Lee's noted that we hear from time to time from those in the town who want to tell us what we are doing wrong. I believe that's related to Mr. Cullen. Is that was the sentence you just brought up, right?
That's the first sentence.
I believe that was him saying, him stressing the importance of having the correct class sizes, so that when we do get erroneous information, that we're able to put that. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking is if we could just modify the minutes to reflect the request for the class size, and that it would be presented at either the August or the September meeting. That's all I'm asking the minutes to be changed to.
So you're talking about the last sentence, right, Paul? Instead of the committee discuss the importance of the context and discussing class sizes, but that's where you wanted to say that you requested the report to be put together?
Yes.
Well, just that it was my request for that report.
Looking at that, yeah, I can see my wording doesn't include the request, like, yeah, I can change that.
That's all.
Thank you, Paul.
So is the intent to bring it back and put it in the next consent agenda?
Yeah, we have to correct it.
So those minutes have to be approved at some point. So I guess my question was, are you proposing an amendment tonight? Or are we having Paul go back and redo the minutes and resubmit them for a future consent agenda?
I would just ask that they reflect what actually happened that night, so if that has to be done in the future, I'm fine with that.
If you don't have language to propose tonight, my suggestion would be to work on that language and bring it back.
Yeah. That's what I assumed, so.
Yeah. That leads into the new business. Would any members like to raise additional?
So do we need
items
to
from-
revisit the motion? We're going to pull the minutes from the June meeting to be re-edited, and we're going to accept the other minutes as well as the rest of the consent agenda and vote on it?
If we don't have a document to vote on tonight, we can't vote on those, so it essentially has to be,
Can we pull out the minutes?
Huh?
Can we just pull out those minutes?
we can pull out those minutes, yeah.
That's what we're doing.
I was just trying to remember do we have a motion and a second on the table?
Yes.
Okay. So we can make a secondary motion to, nope. I know there's a way to do this, we just haven't had to do it in forever.
So I think we have to vote it down, so we would have to say no, and then we'd have to make another
We
motion.
can choose to do that. In theory, we should run a secondary motion, I just can't, I think it's a rescind or something like that, I just don't know it off the top of my head, because. Motion to rescind?
I think so.
Okay, so it's a secondary motion to rescind. Okay, so make a motion to rescind that motion, and then that needs a second.
I'll second.
Okay, and then you got to call a vote
Any
on that one.
discussion? All those in favor?
Okay. And then we need a secondary, another motion, not a second motion, to approve the consent agenda as presented, except for the meeting minutes from June 11th, 2025.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's why we're privileged to have,
Matt knew.
It came up. I don't know if you remember.
Just want to say with Deborah taking minutes for her first time tonight, this is not how every motion goes, okay?
Hey, we like to keep everybody on their toes. So new business, does anybody have any new business? Okay. The next item is the presentation for chronic absenteeism. The chronic absenteeism group is up first. This is a returning item on the agenda, and I believe Dr. Bates is leading this presentation, or whomever you'd like.
Oh, I would love to introduce Jane Keeler, who's
I think I could move this over there. Yes? In order to present.
You can either grab it or, yes, however you want to do it. Can we just say too, so again, we had this discussion in June. Shannon Nolan, this was Shannon working with this committee to develop this information. Shannon is not here because she's dropping her first off at college at the moment. So she would be here if it were any other thing. So I just do want to say that too. And now, just my passing it right to Jane.
Yes, because I didn't realize I was doing that.
Yes. I don't think I realized it either. I don't think you were.
Is this on? You have to hold the button. You have to hold the button.
I have to hold the button to talk.
No, you have to hold it. They're trying to bring the microphone.
Dylan, is this on?
Okay. Oh,
Working
there's
out
feedback.
technical difficulties.
All right. Let's see if we can not have feedback. Okay. Phew. There. Hello? Can you hear me now? Is that better? Test, test. Good? Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. All right. Technology. So thank you all for being here and for inviting us back. Some of this you saw previously in June. So I'm going to start us off. There's a few new pieces of information that we wanted to share tonight. We also have Elizabeth Pacheco, I wanted to say Pachenko, here from the high school, and Heidi Monjo here from the middle school. I know there were some questions that came up at the last meeting that as an elementary person, I was not equipped to answer. Ashad Gaba was here to try to answer some of those questions, and Shannon was also here, so thank you both for being here. I wanted to, before I start, I just wanted to share that I think there may have been some, when I communicated the difference between the attendance plan and the attendance policy. So the beginning of this slide deck really just talks about the district committee that came together to create the attendance plan. And the attendance plan is really what drives the work in the schools to come together to have a cohesive practice in approaching chronic absenteeism. So it's separate from the policy that will be discussed later on. I'm going to skip this slide, but just again to acknowledge the people who made up our committee. It was across the district from all three elementary schools, the middle school and the high school. And the purpose of the committee was to get together and collaboratively research and identify and develop a new way to approach chronic absenteeism consistently across the district. The process behind why we got together was to address chronic absenteeism with consistent district-wide strategies and supports, and to ensure that equitable interventions were provided from the elementary level all the way up to the secondary level. And our goal, overall arching goal, was to develop a district-wide plan with consistent tiered interventions to support students experiencing chronic absenteeism. So again, the plan is separate from the policy. The plan is what's going to drive the work for administrators, school counselors, classroom teachers, and other constituents to help support students at all tiers. How we gathered together, I kind of like busted in on the process halfway through. So I wasn't part of the initial rollout, but the district leadership team initially analyzed district and school level attendance data, looked at where we were needing to improve our processes and procedures in order to support students. They identified what was working and was not working to support students who demonstrated chronic absenteeism. And then from there, the Chronic Absenteeism Committee was brought together. And they did a lot of work. They reviewed and analyzed the district absenteeism data. They identified current tiered interventions and strategies across the schools in the district, and then they determined which of those practices would be beneficial to implement district-wide. They also attended professional development and research strategies and interventions. We dug into what other schools in the area were doing. We reviewed successful plans around surrounding towns. We identified core strategies to embed throughout the plan. And then that's when we began drafting the plan, and then we created this unified tiered system to support students across the district. So this was presented back in June, but again, our overall focus was to try to hone in on these 5 core strategies as what drove the plan. And then you'll see these across all 3 tiers, but really it's just to keep monitoring data, making sure that students who are coming to school are acknowledged, students who are at that at-risk tier, we're starting to provide more resources and interventions, and then again, children in the Tier 3, providing specific plans to address their chronic absenteeism, engage students and families, provide personalized support, recognize good and improved attendance, and remove barriers for students and families. Again, the plan is different from the policy, and the purpose of our plan is just to be sure that we have a unified approach in addressing chronic absenteeism with a goal to reduce chronic absenteeism over time through this multi-tiered system of support. So again, we have the 3 tiers. Tier 1 is universal prevention. This involves all students, pre-K through 12th grade. At-risk students, these students receive targeted support. These are students who have been absent between 9 and 17 days, and then chronically absent students are students who have missed 18 or more school days. And the state does not recognize, when we're looking at chronic absenteeism, does not recognize it excused or unexcused. They're just looking at how many days a student has missed school. So that is part of our plan, even though we know that there's going to be kids who have reasons why they are out. Medical issues, mental health issues, but just so that you understand that's part of the plan because of the way the state defines chronic absenteeism. So quickly, Tier 1, again, these are all students across grade levels. School-based teams will be tracking student attendance and monitoring student attendance. Liz created this amazing data tracker, so we will be uploading data regularly into this data tracker to monitor students who are on trend to either become at risk or have hit that 18 or more days where they're chronically absent. I also want to acknowledge our John Quietek, who took our Aspen and created this system where once a student hits like a certain number of days absent, there's like a marker in Aspen. So we can see them daily, like how their data looks in Aspen. So a student who's at Tier 1 would have a green triangle, students who are at Tier 2 would have a yellow triangle, students who are at Tier 3 would have a red triangle. So it's like live data daily, looking at these the student attendance. Communicating attendance awareness with families, doing communication through weekly newsletters, memos, teachers communicating the importance of attendance, utilizing the DCAP to provide accommodations for students so that they feel successful in the school setting, making sure we're providing a positive school environment where we're building relationships with students and families, and promoting and educating families on community resources and the importance of attendance at school. Tier 3 is when we hit those students who have missed 9 to 17 days of school. Obviously, it's kind of relevant to, like, if you've missed 3 days of school and it's been 5 months of school, or you've missed 3 days of school and it's the first week of school. So we're keeping that at the forefront of our minds as well. I just attended a webinar on attendance, and it was interesting to see students who miss on average like 2 days a month starting in September, are on track to be chronically absent. So it doesn't look like much at first, but if you're not watching the trends, those students quickly fall into that Tier 3 category. So this category is really important, this tier, because we want to make sure we're catching students before they slip into Tier 3. And again, it's providing interventions, putting actions into place, family outreach, identifying barriers that the family or student may be experiencing, making referrals to the student support team or the instructional support team, and referring out to school and community resources if needed. And then the final tier is Tier 3. These are the students who are chronically absent. And as I had said, sometimes we know that there's going to be cases where students exhibit chronic absenteeism because of extenuating circumstances. But then we have students who are missing upwards of 60 days of school with no information as to why they're missing those days. So it's really important that we make sure that we're providing those Tier 1 and Tier 2 support so that we can mitigate students who fall into Tier 3. But again, it's monitoring that data, providing interventions, personalizing plans for students, and creating individualized attendance plans, recognizing improved attendance when they do start to come to school, and really cheering them on to make sure that the families are also feeling supported. Having regular, constant, consistent communication with the families, I think, is key, and integrating, again, any sort of community resources and outside agencies. So at this point, I would like to invite both of them up to the podium. I'm going to sit and let them take over.
Awesome job. I'm going to step over this. Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, you step over, I'll stand.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Heidi Monjo from the middle school, and this is Liz. But I think what's really cool about what we've gone through is we've learned a lot. And we're parents first, and we understand that sometimes there are extenuating circumstances that, families deal with. But our overall approach is holistic, that we want to involve everyone in these collaborative approaches to helping kiddos come to school. And Liz has really been a pillar in helping us identify and gather data. And I want you to speak a little bit. I know that we don't have the numbers up here, but since we've tried to integrate this into our practice, there have been lots of positive outcomes, and Liz actually has numbers. So I'm going to have her share from the high school, of course, but I think it's important to hear a little bit about that.
And really, I think we can contribute the positive impact that we have had on our attendance data, specifically at the high school. I'm just talking about the high school at this point, because of the tiered approach of the interventions through the plan that we have been so working on the last year. And really, I think one of my biggest takeaways from diving into the research and developing that plan is that there is a new focus on truly identifying the barriers that the student has, and identifying not only what the barrier is, but what are the alternatives that we as a schoolhouse can put into place and put into our daily practice, going from the admin team to the teachers, to maybe it's a cafeteria worker that student has identified that they have a connection with. And just bringing light to all of those things has really, made a difference. I'm not going to get into too many specifics, but this one student that we have worked tremendously hard with, typically is chronically absent 60 to 80 days a year, and that is over the lifetime of their schooling. And we did a great deal of work with that student. And that student, though was chronically absent last year, went from being on average 59% missing the whole year down to 24.5% last year. And through summer work that we did with that student identified that they are excited about coming to school for the first time ever, which is just amazing. And when we probed as the why, it's because I feel like I belong. People know me now, where they didn't have that connection. And that's some of the beautiful work that I think is going to continue to come out of the tiered intervention, that we now are going to be collaborating K through 12. So there'll be the cohesive approach to it. But as far as high school data, so year ending 2024, our overall attendance rate was 92.6. This past year, we ended at 93.99. So that means that our students came to school over 1,200 more days last year than they had previously. And that is significant when you, on average, approximately about 3 more days each student was in the seat in front of teachers every single day. 3 more days that the student was having their peer connections, the conversations at lunch, the organic smiles along the way. Those go so far. As far as our chronic absentee rates at the high school, so year ending 2024, we were at, so chronically absent 10% or more, so that's that 18 days or more. We had 23.2% of our students were chronically absent. And I love diving into data, but that one never really felt good, that almost a quarter of our students were chronically absent. That one I had a hard time, right, with. But this past year, we got that number down to 17.6%, which is, I mean, that is like everybody coming together and all of the little smiles, all the little interactions, all of the conversations, the connection to community resources that parents didn't know they had access to prior to that work. And so it's about 30 less kids this past year that were chronically absent as a result of a great deal of people's efforts, including the child themselves and the families. So that was just positive data that we were very happy to see. We do break down the data more in identifying, the state identifies chronic absenteeism with different demographics. So pulling out the students with disabilities, so that counts for students on IEPs. We made significant improvements in decreasing our chronic absentee rate for that demographic. So in 2024, we ended the year at 39.3% of our students with disabilities that were chronically absent. Again, that wasn't a number that felt right or felt good as an educator. Last year, we ended at 28.3. So a 10% decrease, which is significant. And if I dive deeper into the data, we see a drastic decrease in the overall failure rate for those students for their individual courses, as far as retention, because at the high school level, you move on based on the number of courses and credits that you earn. So we saw those numbers come way down, and more students were earning the credits that they were working hard for. So
Awesome.
those are positive things.
So, oops, did I go backwards?
You
I'm
did.
sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so obviously everything weaves together. With this plan, we gave you all the handbook changes for the year, and it starts off with what Jane had presented with just the, the understanding about the tiered approach to the attendance policies. And then it goes into excused and unexcused absences. There really isn't many changes from the year before there. But I think for elementary and middle school, I'm on page 4 of the document that's called Proposed District-Wide Attendance Handbook Language. I'm not sure if you all have that, but
We snapshotted it up here too.
yeah, I think that just to highlight some of the changes, obviously with everything, there's accountability with the understanding that all of us as a leadership team take every situation individually, right? This is not a black and white situation. However, it is important to have a policy from the meetings that we've had and the people, as Jane said, that come in at 9:30, 10 o'clock with a coffee in their hand. We didn't have anything about being tardy, at least at the middle school level. So on page 4, I just, first I'm going to talk about the excessive absences. We really didn't have too much of a policy talking about retention at elementary and middle. So we did put some language in there, and I'm not sure how this works. Do we do questions after everything's done?
It's probably easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can highlight the high school.
So yes, why don't you can highlight the change of there.
So the high school is a significant mindset shift for those of you that are familiar with the former policy. You may have heard something about an FA, which is an administrative failure. So the idea behind an administrative failure is now taken off of the table. Sorry. Oh, is it the wall?
Oh, it's back.
Okay, that's great. Magic. So at the high school level specifically, okay, these are unexcused absences. So not the excused, not the doctor's notes, not the court dates, not the college visits, not the scheduled doctor's appointments, all of that stuff, okay? Those don't go into this part. So at the high school level, a student should not exceed 8 absences in a full year course. Okay, so in the whole year, a student should not exceed 8 absences unexcused, okay, in a full year course. In a part-time course, so at the high school, we have some every other weird kind of schedule things. Part-time courses, we call them, as well as our semester courses, so courses that just meet some 1 or some 2. Those part-time and semester courses, students should not exceed 4. Okay, so on the 9th of a full year course, unexcused absence, and on the 5th, unexcused absence for both semester and part-time courses, there would no longer be, under the old policy, an FA would actually change the numeric grade from whatever the grade that child earned to a numeric 55, and they would receive an FA. If you've had high schoolers, you know the FA, which would pretty much be an administrative failure due to absences. So now a child will still see the numeric grade that they earned, the 83 that they earned in English, okay? There just will be a loss of credit, assuming that they do not earn those hours back that they've missed, okay, through some different measures that we have that we're putting into place this year. So it'll be a credit loss opposed to a grade change, okay? So that, and again, I want to stress that's unexcused absences. So think high schooler, parent, those are the skipped classes, right, is really where we see some administrative failures, is from our chronic skips. Oh, did I go? Oh, it's changing there, but not here. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
So we had no policies of tardies at the middle school level. I believe for the elementary, you did not have one either. So why is this not?
Yeah, I know. It's just here now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How are they going to hear me? So
Yeah.
basically, you can see up here the different policies from the different schools. I think that, again, there are reasons that kids are tardy at times, usually have the dentist appointment or things like that. They didn't feel well, maybe they needed a late start, but this is something that was really necessary at all 3 levels to sort of curb and give some accountability, as we all have in all of our handbooks, that we all believe that being here at school and time on learning is important. So that's middle and elementary, definitely different. I don't know, did yours change as well?
Yeah,
Yes.
ours changed. The biggest change about ours is that it went from monitoring tardies on a monthly basis to now the whole academic year. So our prior policy allowed for a student to be tardy 3 times in a month before they received a discipline consequence of a detention. So pretty much we were allowing students to be chronically tardy over the course of the year. And our data definitely reflected that. As far as chronic tardies at the high school level, we would have, there was numbers of kids that would be tardy every day, 80, 90, 110 days they were tardy. So we're shifting that to an academic year. So first and second offenses is a warning. It's just Mr. Celia and I having conversations in the morning. We sit in the morning at the table, signing kids in as they're late, right? Identifying what's going on, why were they late. And then on the third offense, they would receive a detention. We'll also do some of the collaborative problem solving that we've all been trained in as an admin level, as far as identifying the barriers of why they're arriving to school late. Is it as simple as there was a long line at Dunks, right? To something like I'm helping at home with a younger child. Okay, which is fair, right? And we do hear that quite a bit. So the third offense is when Joe and I will insert the collaborative problem-solving process to really tease out what those barriers are and see what we can do to support the family and the student. I can't change the line at Dunks, though. I'll just encourage them to put their order in earlier. Fourth and fifth offense, we will contact the parent and the guardian. We will have meetings. It may be additional detentions. Again, are they tardy the first 5 days of school? Okay, then you're going to hear from us pretty quickly once we start seeing those trends. Is it, May, and they finally got their fourth tardy? Right? Totally different conversation that we'll have. Sixth, and subsequent offenses after that, maybe a Saturday school, maybe loss of parking privileges, which is everything to a high schooler that drives to school. Loss of senior privileges, which we haven't finalized for this year, but it usually means you can come in late if you have a study first period or leave early if you have a study last period. So maybe they would lose that because they got to get to school on time. So yeah. And again, looking at those chronically tardy students and aligning it to, are they only tardy on certain days with a certain subject or teacher? Right? That drives a totally different conversation with the student bringing the teacher in and the family than the I'm tardy every day because of the Dunks line. Totally different conversation. Because what we do find when we dig deep, sometimes it is a barrier with a particular classroom setting, with the content, whatever it is that they're learning in that moment.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Do you want to come up and see if they have? All right, so now we're ready for questions.
So if I can just quickly thank you all for the work, and I know we've already seen the positive impacts of it. So the documents you have the plan, which is the result of the work. You have handbook language, which I gave you all of the handbooks attached here tonight as edited with no change to the attendance language in any of them. The language that part of the output of this work is having universal language in the handbook. We'll talk about our portrait of a learner tonight, this pre-K through 12 concept of knowledge and information and common language. So it's important for a middle schooler to know what's coming up at the high school, or an elementary student to know what's coming up at the middle school. So that handbook language, that's extensive, right? It's quite a bit of information. It's almost instructive as much as it is policy, would be inserted, and all of the other attendance tardiness language would come out. But there was no easy way to do a red line, markup to show you what's changed. You just had to look at it side by side. So, and then separately, there's a policy, and if I can just talk through that quickly. The existing policy is policy JH, right? So the shift is adding in where it says each principal or designee shall send a warning email or letter to the parent guardian of any student who has missed 7 excused or unexcused school days. A school day should be equal to, I don't have to read it to you, you have it there. So again, the language there is speaking to excused and unexcused, going back to, I think it was Jane who started by saying, in the eyes of the state and the data that we're held accountable for, an absence is an absence, is an absence. So excessive or chronic absenteeism, while at the high school, we can have a nuanced policy shifting from administrative failures to loss of credit. That doesn't show up in our actual absenteeism data. It is an absence is an absence. So those are the things you need to approve tonight are the policy edit, if you're willing to take that as a one-stop shop, it fits with everything else, as well as the handbook language that you'd be approving, whether you do it now or later in cooperation with the rest of the handbooks.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Can you speak to why the consequences at the middle school are different from the consequences at the high school?
Well, we're not on a credit basis at the middle school, so, and I thought with regard to, we had no policy to instituting the new one. I'm just going to reference it for a second here on my paper.
Yeah, 3 tardies and a quarter.
Yeah, I think that we were just kind of doing a softer landing there with regard to going from nothing to instituting something new. And obviously, age level, I think, what I neglected to say is, like Liz, we want to make this collaborative with parents. And I think the hardest thing sometimes is the parent will say, well, I have to drop off my younger at, the other school before I can come to drop off the middle school student. So I'm not sure if that answers, but I feel like we didn't really have, they had a previous tardy policy at the high school level. So that's
So I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what the high school, is this the same policy, like, is this the same consequences that you've had before, or are they more?
As far as, yeah, they're much stricter now. So the shift again for the high school, specifically for tardies, is everyone loved the first day of the month because their tardy count, it got wiped clean, right? So they loved that. A new month was great. And sure enough, the first, second, third of the month, they were all tardy again. And then it's what did we learn last month, right? So now it is a whole academic year. So again, first and second is that warning. In comparison to last year, it was the first and second was a warning, but it was in 1 month. Right? And then on the third, within that month, they received a detention. Now it'll be on the third, accrual from September to June will be that detention. And then so on and so forth. Because kids are smart, they bank their days.
Yeah, so I can understand the carryover. The thing that I'm confused at is 3 tardies as a warning in the middle school, but only 2 in the high school, and then the third offense is an after school, whereas 5 to 7 in the middle school is a lunch detention, which is a completely different, because now after school detention, depending upon the day of the week, if there's a late bus or not or whatnot. Fourth and fifth offense, parent guardian meeting, we're still not even hitting 5 to 7 at the lunch detention. So I'm just wondering why we're approaching one way in the high school, middle school one direction and the high school with different consequences.
I think that's a great question, and it could be me. I think just personally as an administrator, I just felt because they're younger, and, these kids drive and they have a little bit more autonomy with getting there on time. So I'm not saying, I guess that this was just something that we as a team thought would be appropriate at the middle school level. Would you rather see it go to the high school level at the middle school? Oh, okay. So again, I think it's a lot of talking to parents, really, if the kid didn't get on the bus. It's harder for me to say, you have detention when mom is really having to deal with something else in the family. So I don't know if that's a good answer or bad for you, but that's my thought process.
And no, those are the conversations we're having with the high schoolers as well, like behind closed doors when we identify the barriers as far as why they can't get to school. If it's because they're caring for a child and there's an issue right there, we're not going to necessarily give them the detention at the same time, right?
Yeah, I think as we were talking through this, right, the reality is you have an expectation, and then as I think you've all said it in some capacity, and then we adjust based on the facts in front of us, right? The reality is a student who has to watch a younger sibling in the morning and can't be there, we can penalize as much as we want. We're not going to change that life circumstance, so let's find another solution. And there's a commitment to that for sure. But for me, as I went through this and chatted with them, right, at the elementary, it is 100% parent, right? At the high school, there's a lot of autonomy, and so the idea that the middle school is the halfway, right? We're out of elementary. In a traditional middle school setting, we'd have 5 through 8 together, and we would kind of have that kind of instruction is that gradual release of responsibility. So it's that gradual increase in autonomy and responsibility for the students. So I think that's part of the discussion as we had talked about that there is it's a halfway point in between the literally out of their control as an elementary student on up to, not fully right away, but a lot more within their control at the high school.
And two, thinking about the day schedule, right? The bell rings at 7:42, announcements are started by 7:42 and a half, right, over by 7:45. So that's when the teachers are kicking off. And they're going over the daily objectives. They're reviewing the material from last night. They're doing the do now, the activator to get them going, right? When those students that are chronically tardy that are coming in at 8:05, they're missing all of that. They're missing so much. And then what the teachers find is at 8:05, they're repeating themselves because 7 kids just walked through the door. And there's a need to, right? And then there's a loss on learning, and sometimes that whole first period could be spent at that point, So really it's focusing in on utilizing all of the instructional minutes.
So thank you for this, because this is very comprehensive. I wanted to know, in some of the documentation, it looks like Tier 2 and Tier 3 are switched in the pyramid. So if you look at the attendance plan, Tier 3, the intensive support.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'm right with you.
Okay.
I was presenting this the other day at staff meeting, and I was like, the tiers are wrong. And we had fixed it. So, but we still don't have it right. So we acknowledge that, and we will fix that error. But I had to jump up because I was like, right away I was like, those tiers are still wrong. I think one of the tiered pyramids have been corrected on one document,
The
but I just
presentation is
caught
correct.
another one.
Yes.
Okay.
Prior to the, so we will work on that.
We just need to correct it in the handbook language is where it's.
And I had no access because I was like, I can't access the I can't fix it. So we will correct that.
And my other question, maybe while you're up here, is that it's a little confusing that what should be Tier 2 is just strictly days, but the Tier 3, the chronically, lists both number of days and percentages, but it's not clear if it's a percentage or number of days. You know what I mean? So it says, 18 or more days and then 10% or more missing. So on your 20th day of school, that's right, 2 days out of your 20 days. And I'm not sure if one then, kind of takes precedent as a measure over another, and also unclear as to why the at-risk is 9 to 17, but is not 5 to 9%.
Yeah. I think we
That
just
makes
pull the
sense.
percentage. I think the 10% is the standard set for chronic absenteeism. So I think we can just pull it out. So it's all students in Tier 1, at-risk students 9 to 17 days, Tier 2, and 18 or more days in Tier 3. So we can just pull
Okay.
the percentage out, because the percentage is until you arrive at the 18,
Yes.
it's not necessary.
Yeah, it depends on how you look at it, right? Because it's kind of, is no action taken until you get to 18 is one way to read that, right? Whereas if it's 10% or more, that's saying you're 40 days in and you've got 4 days absent, we're taking an action then. So it's like two different things, and that's where I was getting confused. And I think I was even more confused because sometimes you guys listed a number of days and sometimes you said they're trending in that direction. And that feels like the percentage to me, and I'm just...
Yeah, so that there's probably clarifying our language, because in the data tracker that we're all using now, we do look at trending data versus over the course of a whole year. And really that's for a talking point. So when a teacher comes up to us and is like, wow, Johnny is not doing good in my class, what is going on, right? And we can easily look at our comparative data, trending versus actual, and it's really just a talking point. Well, because right now we've only had 36 days of school and they've been absent 28, right? And so that's more of a talking point for the plan work. So, but I totally see what you're saying, hear what you're saying.
Okay. I think it would be helpful if it was one or the other, and if it's percentages, I mean, I think it needs to be clear for anyone that's reading the handbook, sort of what's happening when, but also the measure that's dependent on, because they are two different things, and it's a little confusing, and even in your discussion, it was like kind of confusing. It's about what measurement that was taken off of and where action was taken.
Yeah, I think it has to be the numbers, not the percent, because even the trends, like as Liz was talking about, I think it was Liz, you were saying that, or maybe it was Jane, giving John a shout out, right? The fact that as we're moving in those directions, as we see those color codes, but if we're trending towards these thresholds. So it's the threshold that would kick it, and it would be the numbers, but percentage-wise, we're watching. That's different than the thresholds by which we're measuring,
Yeah.
right? Or holding accountable and taking action.
Yes. Yeah, it's tough that kids get to 18 days before that is truly actionable if you're just looking at days for the chronically absent tasks, which is, when I was hearing from you, that's almost not what's happening, it sounds like.
No, so like when we're putting in tier 1, 2, or 3 attendance interventions, it's based on 180 days. So even though we may be on day 36 of school, right? If they've been absent 18 days, we're going to go to tier 3 intervention.
Right, and again, the difference here between an intervention, the work we're doing to stop it, and the consequences are two very different things. Just like when we're talking about intervention in the classroom for reading, we don't want to wait until the student is failing. We want to intervene early, provide the necessary intervention, and get them back up to grade level, and then we're good. So I think the intervention is different than, I hate the consequence, right? But then the accountability of it.
Yeah.
The intervention is not necessarily kicked off just when you hit the thresholds. It's when we're trending toward those that we're saying, okay, we're considering this kiddo a tier 3, and we're jumping in and creating a plan.
I guess I just think it should be clearer to people, hopefully, when actions should be taken and like what that action means. And I'm not sure from the materials that we have here that that's entirely clear. Like when I would be reached out to as a parent.
So if, could be my height. Hold on.
Because it almost is like a judgment call, I
So
think.
if you look at, I don't know if you all have like the attendance, access to the full attendance plan, but if you look in at the tiered systems under each tier, right? So I think when you first open the plan, there's like tier 1, and then typically that's just good practices, right? Building relationships, engaging families in the community setting of the school. Yep, sending out attendance information. It's when you get to tier 2, I believe the language in there is at around 7 days. So when a student is absent 7 days, can be in a week, can be in 2 months, we will send out a letter. It's a formatted letter that it's the same across the district, just saying, hey, we've noticed that your child has been absent this many days. They're trending toward tier 2 intervention. How can we support you? It really is, all these tiered interventions is really about removing the barriers, supporting the students, supporting the families, and being proactive. And that's kind of through all 3 tiers. When it comes to the intervention plan, when you get into, and you may create an individualized attendance plan at that time. Like I'm thinking of students right now in my school at the elementary level who have been trending with chronic absenteeism concerns for over 2 years. So I'm probably when they hit that tier, I'm probably going to be like, come on in, let's have a conversation. How can we support you? Let's create a plan. And we have a template plan that's being used district-wide as well. It's a little nuanced from elementary to middle school to high school, but for the most part, the plan template is the same. So think of it as like kind of like an individualized plan, but for really addressing attendance and how to support the student and the families. Then when you get into tier 3, again, then you're definitely needing attendance plans. You're probably pulling in other supports with the community, outside the community whatever that might be. Outside counseling, wraparound services, access to maybe the Pettingill House, whatever the family may need to support them, to support their student. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Kind of. I guess I just, like, if I was reading this as a parent, I'd want to be clear on sort of when that gets triggered, and I'm not totally clear. Like, even in what you just mentioned, it says 4% of the school year, which is 7 days. So it's both a percentage and it's, right, but it's not a percentage of the current portion of the school year, I guess, which is, I guess I just hope it could be cleaned up, because I think, you know, as much as, you know, some parents are just sort of carrying on with life, because life is what it is. Others are saying to their kids, like, when you hit 7 days, this is what happens. Like, let's try not to hit 7 days, you know? And I think if, you know, you're telling a kid 7 days or 4%, and that letter comes in the mail and they're like, I thought I was doing the right thing. And I would, this is also, I guess, goes toward intent, but the excused versus unexcused absences, I understand what Desi's doing, but it feels like when you're sending someone a letter that has excused absences or bringing them in, that is not incentivizing the behavior that we want from families.
We talked about that.
Okay.
And I believe that sorry, can you hear me? We're going to make sure that we communicate exactly what you just said, right? This is not about, you know, we understand that there are different reasons why, but per this new plan, all families will receive a letter after 7 days, just indicating, again, there's different reasons for the absence, but it's sort of systemic now throughout the district, that's a kind of a, hey, you know, we're at 7 days. We're kind of needing to look a little bit more at it. Yeah.
I'm just picturing my kid has a fever for 4 days. I know I'm supposed to have a note, right? I know it's not required, but I know I'm supposed to have a note, so I'm making an appointment, paying for that appointment, taking time out of my work day to go in and take that kid to that appointment so that I have that note, and then I'm getting a letter in the mail.
I know, I
understand. And I just feel like that's, it's negative for families in a way that we shouldn't be, right? If we're trying to incentivize them to do that, like, what's my, other than potentially retention at the end of the year, like, what's my incentive to spend that money and take my time out of the workday to go do it the right way, if I'm getting a letter anyway?
Or to not send them sick. I mean, if you're going to get penalized for,
Yeah.
you're going to send them sick.
I guess I think I hear you, because we actually had some of that happen this year when we did send letters.
Yeah.
And again, you know, you're right. We don't want to send a negative situation, but I think the team just felt, you know, when you're looking at the policies of attendance across, you know, the state, across the whole country, really, that is by law what the state says to do. It literally says you're supposed to contact families when the student hits 7 days. That's from the state of Massachusetts. So we're just trying to abide by.
So are you saying, I'm sorry to cut you off, so are you saying if it was counting unexcused absences, you'd be okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think that's a different story, right? If your kid is, I'm just like making this up, right? But your kid had a small illness earlier in the year, and then a close family member dies, and they're spending 4 days off, and that's excused, and then you're getting that letter in the mail saying your kid, it's essentially saying, like, your kid's done I don't want to say done something wrong, but, like, that's sort of the thing behind it, is we're sending you a warning letter. And I understand legal, and I guess I understand DESE, but I'm just struggling with what message that sends to our families.
I think part of the work that we do when we send those different different warning letters is the importance of having the phone call be made prior to the letter being sent, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because most often, At the high school level, Joe and I would know the intricacies, right, of the student's absence. If we weren't sure, we'd be reaching out to Nadine, our nurse, who would be able to provide us with some more information. And sometimes, depending on the case, it would be Nadine, the nurse at the high school, giving a call. Just say, like, just so you know, the office is aware, you're going to receive this. I know all the information, appropriate information was shared, like, it's okay. And sometimes some positive things that come out of it, like, wow, I didn't realize it was 4% or 10% or 17% of the year. Like, maybe that helps me understand how I need to support my student at home through those, moments, because maybe that is why grades are slightly lower in one term versus another. And, those are all things and conversations that we're having in our offices, right, with the appropriate people around to really understand how it's impacting the overall student's learning. So know that, like, we 100% hear you. I cringe every time when I have to send a letter to somebody, and I know there's a legitimate reason, but that's why it's preventatively, a phone call is made, and usually the parent is, or the guardian is like, I get it, I hear it, it's okay, thank you for the heads up. So, and we'll make sure that we do that every time.
Okay. In the handbook language, it doesn't really seem to differentiate on the tardies. We have busing issues. Buses come in late. I don't there's nothing in there that states that that I saw that states that would not be registered as a tardy. So I would appreciate it if some language could be added just to.
I don't even want to put it in there because the buses shouldn't be late.
I know. Oh, I know that. Like, I didn't even want to open my mouth now that we've got penalties in there. But I mean, I could just see kids stressing. Right.
And we can make it very clear, and we always make it very clear to them. They know on their bus if they're always late.
We would never mark them tardy.
Yeah, we have never, ever.
And we want them late, so we can get someone.
No.
Nice.
She's kidding.
She's kidding.
And why disciplinary penalties on tardies versus absences?
Well, with an absence, there is a significant natural consequence, right, with the loss of credit if we get to that point.
Yeah,
there's also the natural consequence of the missed opportunity, the learning opportunity, right? So you're naturally going to see a slight dip potentially in a student's grade. So why is there no consequences? It would be like a double. Right? It would be a double negative at that point if there was both disciplinary action and the grade coming down or the loss of credit. So that's why absences are different, are managed differently.
Okay. And the last thing, I think I mentioned this last time, was just that I would appreciate any time that we are recognizing someone for stellar attendance to also recognize that if you're sick, you should stay home. Because
I think we're saying that.
And
Yep.
our nurses,
I don't think we're
our
saying
nurses
that.
yeah, I mean, that's not saying that anywhere in here, but I mean, I know it's in other sections of the handbook, but it's, I think it's something that just.
There is some, it's actually embedded under Tier 1. So our nurses across the district do a really nice job, especially during like cold and flu season, and just symptoms to be watching for when your child is sick. When should you keep them home? What is this policy around being fever-free for 24 hours? So those are links embedded that are resources for us to send out, or for the school nurse to send out, because I think I said it last time, I don't want to come to work sick. I don't want my students to come to school sick. That's how everybody gets really sick, and then all of a sudden you have like 10 kids out of a 20 student population class. So that's embedded under Tier 1, where the school nurse would be sharing that, or like administrators through their weekly messaging.
And what I like about what changed with regard to perfect attendance, because I never got that, is that it renews itself every quarter. So the kid, you know what I mean? You get 4 chances. If you were sick quarter 1, but you weren't quarter 2. I never realized how much this means to children.
It does.
And when they get the letter that they had it for that quarter, It's a great thing.
Yeah, in return, though, the person that doesn't get it and sees their peers getting it, it also damages them a little bit.
So it's not public, it just is, it's sent to you via mail.
Wait, you need to turn on your mic. Hey,
Caitlin.
It's always public, even if the letter goes home.
Sure.
It's going to go out there. I just have a couple of questions really quick.
Sure.
And some of it circles back to Narissa's point and actually this point too. I think sending a letter home, if you have a student, so I will say from experience, even when it's excused, even when they know they cannot go to school because literally doctors have been like, you cannot go to school. And then you're like, okay, so the parents literally like calling the principal, the assistant, the teachers emailing every day, like, so sorry, we're still in this, like, we can't make this happen. And then to then get a letter, that student's still aware that that letter came. And it's kind of like, well, I wanted to go, but I was told I was unable to. And now they're getting kind of that repeat kick. So, and that creates a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of push and pull, which I think could be avoided if we switch up letters to differentiate between the two. Like, I understand that you have excused absences, but we just want to make you aware that even though these are excused and there's extenuating circumstances, like, that's a different letter that's making a family aware versus one that's just blanket, that's like, you have that parent that's like, listen, I couldn't call you more if I tried.
We do that at the high
I
school.
don't know if we're allowed to say, but we do that
We do
because
that.
we totally agree with you.
Just because when you look at it from a student perspective,
Yeah.
not just the parent perspective, and the same thing with, tardies and stuff, kind of looking at that and getting those letters and those consequences when you're literally not in a place to change it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you have to run laps and you're late for practice, but you're not the one that drove to practice, and you're like, I'm just doing it. My other question is, the letter comes on day 7, gets mailed out, but the consequences start on day 5.
For tardies.
For
not-
tardies,
it's-
so-
This is for
This
absences.
is the letters for absences.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm just looking at like the tardy situation. The warning's like 3, 5 to 7, so they're different. You're not getting a tardy letter?
No.
Just absences?
Just absences.
So when,
I sent an edit, so it didn't get up there, but when they get to the point where there's consequences, the parents are called, they're doing reflections.
Okay.
And so I apologize, I did
No.
send an edit, maybe it didn't make it on time, it's probably my fault.
no, I'm looking through like quickly here and
Yep.
here, and I just want to make sure that I'm all about a lunch detention, especially because it's quick. Like, they're
Yeah.
going to get that tardy, they're going to serve that detention, it's going
Yeah.
to be immediate, that, especially for a middle schooler, that's kind of what you want to do, like that immediate, like, you were late, this is how many, here it goes. But just wondering when, because at middle school, they tend, they can wander a little. They have some
Yes.
autonomy there, they can get lost. But I just wanted to know when the parent would be made aware, because they're not, if it's a middle of the day tardy versus
Yes,
morning.
100%, I would be communicating as soon, I'd probably at 3, I'd communicate before the lunch
I didn't
detention
know.
happens.
Did I
Yep.
just miss it when I read it?
Could just ask, so I'm looking at the high school tardy piece of this, and I totally understand, first of all, that that's what DESE needs to see while monitoring attendance working from home. But I've been that teacher at 8:05, losing my mind repeating that thing. At the same time, that is really stringent, and I'm starting to think about logistics. I'm imagining September is going to have a lot of detentions. Just knowing what I see in the schools I've been in. And if those get missed, that becomes something else, and that becomes something else. And is there something in place to deal with those logistics? Because I really do see that being a big thing, and if it doesn't work out, we're going to see cynical
Yes.
responses to it, and this,
So, fun fact about me, I love a good pivot table and a good data tracking system for everything. So yes, there is a spreadsheet with multiple different views and sheets and pivot tables that appropriate columns and rows are shared with people. And honestly, the spreadsheet does a lot of the calculations for us and reassigns the detention for another day. It's magical, so 3-year work in progress, fine-tuned shooting again this year, because it's always a working document. So yes, and it is a lot to manage. 100%, it is. But it is, and what I found, what Joe and I have found specifically at the high school, it's pulling in the appropriate people to support the monitoring of the data. So whether it be Julie Scarfo from the main office, the detention teachers are all trained on how to view and use the detention tracker, and they're able to communicate to us, we're able to communicate to them. So yes, students, if they miss a detention, they get reassigned, and yes, it builds upon, builds upon, builds upon. But in all of that, are there going to be a lot of detentions for this in September? Maybe, right? You know, I can tell you that towards the end of the first week of every month, the detention numbers skyrocket, right? Because of like the clocks starting over on the first day of the month. So will there be? Yeah. But ultimately what we're trying to do, which is what we haven't been able to do with under our old policy, is change the behavior, right? Because of the clock erasing on the first month, right? They're like, yeah, new month. See you at 8:05 tomorrow, like literally, right? So, and we haven't been able to change that behavior for the students that are chronically tardy. These are the chronically tardy ones, right? Things come up always, right? We've all been late to work once or twice in a year. Not Heidi. So I have. So it's really identifying the barriers, working with those students to ultimately change the behavior. Just like in our attendance work that we did last year, we were able to make significant strides on multiple students, right? As far as just coming to school and being present, we were also able to make significant strides for students chronically tardy to school, as well as students leaving at 11 o'clock, at 11:02. Every day. So
What are we going to do when we get to the second week of school and we have somebody that's been tardy 6 times and now is going to Saturday school for the rest of the year? Who's going to sit with them at Saturday school? What are they going to learn or be responsible for when they're in Saturday school, as well as what are their responsibilities when they're at an after-school detention?
Okay, that's a great question, because there is a pretty significant difference between Saturday school and after-school detention. After-school detention is after-school detention, exactly what you may remember from being in high school, right? It is tied to when we have late buses, so that is not a barrier for a student being able to stay. But there is a significant difference between detention and Saturday school. So Saturday school operates, right now we have it slated for 11 times for the whole school year. We'll pivot and add more if we need to down the road, but there is 2 teachers there. Depending on the population, we could add a 3rd if there's that many kids, or if they're depending on the makeup of the students. You'll often find me at Saturday school as well, or Joe. So Saturday school is used for a couple of different things. It's a disciplinary consequence for some behaviors, and it also is going to be for attendance remediation. So when a student is assigned Saturday school, they'll know immediately. Parent guardian will be notified immediately, as well as the student's teachers. And the student will have a form that they're responsible for filling out and completing with each one of their teachers. The objective of the form is for the student and the teacher to communicate with one another as far as what's the learning objective, what is the expectation to take place for that content area for during Saturday school. So when the Saturday school teachers are here, which they may know the Saturday school teacher, they may not, the Saturday school teacher understands what is expected of the student and is able to support the student along the way. The crew that does Saturday school is amazing. A lot of special educators do Saturday school, which is like a huge benefit to us because they are in so many of our classrooms that they're able to support in the content area. So that is just something that magically works. Does that answer that?
What happens if the barrier is they can't get to Saturday school?
Yeah, and that happens. It does. That happens, that there's a transportation issue, right? Does it happen often? No. Does it happen? Yes, right? Can the Saturday school be changed because I'm going with Dad for the weekend in New Hampshire and I can't get there? Yes, absolutely. We're going to work with the family. There's also alternative times, right, that we can build in for the student in other areas that they can meet that. But if there's a barrier for Saturday school regarding transportation, we're going to figure out a workaround of that.
I guess I have a question. I know that we're beating this to death, but for the full course year, 8 unexcused absences is a credit loss, and we don't send a letter till they're absent 7 days. So that only gives them one more day before they get a credit loss.
So that's a formal letter that's going to be sent, right? But I can guarantee you there's going to be a conversation either with the parent, the student, and the teacher, and definitely Joe and I or the guidance counselors, that the letter isn't going to be a surprise at that point. I think that's the ultimate hope.
I was just concerned that if I'm a student with 7 unexcused absences, what gives me motivation to continue, you know what I mean, trying to get them to come back to school, because I'm already going to lose credit.
But they can earn it back.
Right. That's the missing piece is an administrative failure. Literally, administration changed the grade of record to 55. Now they're given opportunities to step back in and make up for that lost credit, so that, I think you used an 83 as an example, that 83 stays in the grade book. They know they have time to make up to get that credit back, and then they keep on making progress, so they don't lose any progress.
Does anybody have any more questions? I want to thank all of you for the amount of time that you put into this, and it just goes to show you it takes a village to help our community and help our students, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I do want to thank the 3 of them as well as the other folks who spent a lot of time talking about absenteeism. And I don't want to quote who it was. I think it was Liz that said, right, this is about changing behavior. Ultimately, changing human behavior is not easy. So there has to be a construct. And then I think as they've demonstrated, and I think we've demonstrated routinely, we always work within the construct when there's a realistic, when there's a real and present reason for something, and work with families. But I think it's important that we start with the construct and putting it out there.
It shows compassion that in all of our lives, we have different things that happen in it, and it happens to our students and families. So it shows them that it isn't, if you get to day 10, you failed, that's it. So it just shows that we're adapting and being compassionate.
I'm going to say, so the 2 things that need to be approved by you is the policy and the handbook language. What I heard about handbook language was obviously the graphic, need to fix the graphic, clarify where there's percentages and just go straight numbers. And then I was hearing in the tiered, this concern about treating excused and, generally speaking, treating excused and unexcused the same. So I think it's simple for us to go through the handbook language and clarify around the numbers, the graphic versus percentage. Also, the tiered plan is not necessarily an approval, but we can talk, I heard you all agreeing to the concept of maybe a different model letter for someone who has chronic medical issues and has been absent 7 times, so they're chronically absent before they even miss a day for a valid reason. So I think that's something we could work on and bring back a draft of what that other letter would look like. And I wonder, too, if in the beginning of the handbook language, there is a sentence, I heard it repeatedly, we don't want sick kids coming to school. Is there a statement somewhere at the end of that first paragraph as a reminder, when students are ill, they should remain home and contact the school? Just a simple statement, so it's out there. Yeah, I guess I would throw that out there as, if we made those tweaks, does that language then make sense so we can get it into handbooks? Because school starts Tuesday. Just a little reminder, spoiler alert.
I think what you're saying makes sense. I think overall, I have a lot of concerns about this catching up with kids who are in general not problematic and maybe feeling punitive to a lot of kids in that way over something where I to be really cynical, we had a pandemic and then Desi's like, oh, look, kids are absent a lot. We better do something about that. And they're causing all of this work for you and that. And I just think this is, I think they're coming at it with the wrong approach. And I don't know that I want to support that.
I would say to you, totally agree on their approach. I think, I don't want to speak for the group, and the group is larger than the three here tonight. This was more about changing behaviors. I'm sorry, I'm too close. More about changing behaviors and actually getting our kids, our Vikings, in seats in our schools more than checking a box for DESE. I think I've gone on the record many, many times saying, right? And so a lot of this has been in practice, right? So the work that they've done over the year and the data that Liz shared explicitly is about changing for our students, right? The experience for our students. So I get that, I do. And it's hard to put these constructs in place, but I think there are things we have to do because they said so. Fine. But I think the majority of this is born out of work of ways that we can work with our families to get our kids here. And will there be some bad consequences? Potentially, and then we can adjust, right? That's the reality is we have the ability to pivot and adapt. And I think Heidi admitted, right, I'm not supposed to say that, but I do this, right? We all do that, right? When there's the reality is we have the construct, we're always going to say, I was talking to Michael today about a conversation with someone, I'm like, you can't ever say that. And I went and had the conversation and said that. So, right, so of course, right, we have the constructs, we put the construct in place, and of course we adapt to human behavior and work with, we'll applaud our leadership team on always working with who's in front of us, right? Always. So, yeah.
I think it would be good if we probably had at least a quarterly or semi-annual update as to how this is working and whether or not we need to make adjustments to it, because personally, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety just like during this discussion about consequences and how it happens, and excused versus unexcused being counted the same way, and it's hitting me hard right now. So I think being able to revisit it, maybe perhaps as we see whether or not it's working, or if we have to adjust throughout the school year to ensure that we're not just setting people up for failure, is going to be important.
I think COVID started this absenteeism issue that we have, and I think what this leadership team has done is brought it back to be a personal issue, like looking at the students in front of you and the people in front of you and how each situation is different.
The only friendly amendment I would make to that is I think COVID shed a light and exacerbated a problem.
Yes.
We did not have, we struggled, and again, this is not a Triton only problem. We struggled with attendance, just like employers struggle with attendance, right? And private schools struggle with attendance. So it's an issue, and that's why, the work that's been done really for years now, it's been about changing behavior. Again, some of this we have to do, but largely this is in response to what we've seen working. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated attendance policy file JH amended as discussed.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I'm going to oppose.
There were no updates proposed to handbook language? No, there were. Yeah. There were. Yes. So that is also So I'll make a motion to approve the updated student handbook language to replace the existing language in all 5 schools' handbooks amended as discussed.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? I'd like to request the committee's permission to bring certain agenda items to the front of the agenda to be respectful of presenters' time. That would include the portrait of a learner presentation and the Salisbury Elementary School playground fundraising proposal. Are there any objections? Thank you. Let's take the portrait of a
Wait a
learner.
minute, I know Michael's here. Are you guys both here for,
The
are you both here
playground?
for playground?
Yeah.
Are you being
He's here.
Michael's moral support? That's,
So, yes, playground.
so I would playground first and
Yeah.
then portrait of a learner second.
If it was Portrait of a Learner, I would have dragged the whole leadership team here. So while Michael's coming up, if I can just share context. So we have had routine conversations about ownership of our elementary schools and how that intersects. I'll share during my superintendent's report a couple updates we're working on at Pine Grove with some big issues, Salisbury with some big issues. Playgrounds have been a discussion for a long time. Pine Grove had a brand-new playground, part of the project, fully spent or fully paid for by the town through the project. Newbury had a new playground, gosh, it's got to be 15 years ago now, 13, 14 years ago. Fundraising effort, basically through the PTA, an arm of the PTA, did a new playground, fully funded, worked with the town, approved through us, but it was approved through the town as well because it's a town building. So Michael came in swinging, wanting a new playground, and so he has run with this. And so just a little context before he shares, I've been working with Neil to figure out exactly how this will work. Because this is happening through the gentleman at the end of the table, through the PTA, which is a school-based organization, we're going to treat this as school property. So as such, fundraising, naming, which there's some naming on a sign, you have to approve. In essence, then, it's in Salisbury, it falls under Parks and Recreation. When we're done with the project and it, in essence, transfers back, I should pause, building permits, Conservation Commission, right? All of those boxes have to be checked and have been checked along the way. But as far as fundraising and how that works, we'll manage it as a school project as far as oversight. As far as liability, it's a school project. As far as construction practice, it's a school project. And in essence, we would then hand it over to the town. It becomes part of, through the town's rec department, and then they would set up guidelines as they do for other public spaces to say, it's the schools primarily during the school day and school events, it's the school playground. It's only available on weekends or other times. So that's the kind of backdrop for why Michael's presenting this to you tonight, really as a fundraising effort, because the fundraising it does involve some promises of names on a sign and stuff. So that's the construct. So we can talk about that first before Michael talks. Narissa's got some questions.
I do, just because in part this is what I do. So so the PTA is collecting the money.
We'll raise the funds, yep.
Okay. They're then donating the money to the district, or are they paying the companies directly?
So they would donate the money to the district. Again, we haven't gone down that path with them yet, but the idea is they would donate the money to the district, gift, receive, approve it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we're in-kind donating it to Salisbury Parks and Rec afterwards,
Yep.
effectively.
Correct.
Okay.
Otherwise, I should say, right, so there aren't, I guess I could go back to Neil and say, hey, we don't want anything to do with it. I don't think that works. So I think it's all us and then in kind hand it back to the town in essence, or it's a town project. There are no restrictions on naming and those things, right? It's up to Parks and Rec. And that just gets complicated when Michael as the principal is trying to spearhead this and such. She's doing her municipal law math in her head.
No, I'm just trying to think this through. Like PTA is doing the fundraising here, but we're promising things from the district in return for funds that are getting donated to the PTA, which will eventually come to us when the PTA chooses to make that donation and we choose to accept it. But we're making a promise based on something that the PTA is accepting. And that was one of the questions that I had through all of this, is it's not clear who's social media, who's being responsible for the flyers. All that stuff is very unclear in here, so that was going to be one of my major questions, because in theory, if the donations are going to the PTA, then the PTA should be doing that piece. The one piece that I saw in here that was specifically about the school was the permanent feature on the school website, which I have a huge issue with. When an organization makes that monetary donation and it's part of a project, right, generally it's okay to do like the donor board and, you know, a plaque on a specific piece. And that's all fine because it's part of the project that the PTA arranged and then is essentially putting in our court to follow through.
So we can talk about the specifics as we go through the proposal, but.
Yeah, but I'm also trying to wrap my head around the fact that if any advertising on campus, we have to approve, but then it's going to Parks and Rec, do they have to have a separate approval?
No, because they don't require naming approval.
They don't require,
So,
okay.
right, yeah, so that was part of this was, if we want to have any say,
Okay,
it's our project.
okay.
And I feel like because it's, in essence, we operate like it's our school, right, on a
Yeah,
day-to-day basis, then we want the process, the end result, to all be within what we've decided, you've decided as a committee, and we've decided as a district.
The district parameters,
And it would be like any other district project, yeah.
Okay.
So to clarify, because this is a change from last year, the PTA is taking on the fundraising. No, because this was kind of the concern that, if following it from when you took this over and spearheaded it, one of the discussions was who's in charge of the fundraising. So if the PTA is taking on the fundraising and holding the funds, they are owning the fundraising.
Yeah, as far as our conversations around this, the PTA set up its own separate fund for this and will be housing the funds for the project.
But the fundraisers, they're kind of owning those, or, I'm just trying to follow the money.
So
Like, that's kind of where I'm getting
it, or are
stuck.
they hosting?
Hold on, can I
Well,
just
the
finish? I'm just kind of going through, because
Yeah.
I've been a part of this process for like so
So
long.
if the PTA is collecting the money, they're doing the fundraising. If Michael's involved, that can be through the PTA too.
But that's my question. The PTA is doing the fundraising, so they're that organization. It's not like somebody does a fundraiser and then gives the money to the PTA. Or is it both? I'm just trying to clean up where the money trail, because my concern is the money's changing hands a lot throughout the whole process, and I just want to make sure we have a way of like recording it and having the whole process just be easily, like $5 went here, and we were just watching that $5 all the way through to when we give it back to the town.
Yeah.
So
Weird.
there'll be one transfer, right? As Michael just said,
Yep.
PTA is collecting the funds. So, right, you've looked, it's not a small dollar amount, right? This isn't being raised by next year. So it's going to be likely either a really amazing effort or at least a multi-year effort. And so PTA collects the funds. We go through the process, award the project hand in hand with them. They transfer the funds and we pay the bills, right? So this isn't we're getting $5 from a fundraiser and putting it into the SES PTA account that Rich is now in charge of. That's not it. Rich is surprised?
No, I just want to make sure that it's
Yes.
very cleanly outlined, like who's in charge of what process and how is it being accounted for, and then how it moves. Because sometimes you see things like this and they just, if they're not cleaned up at the very beginning, they get very, very difficult.
Yes. And so
Don't wanna go there.
separately, not part of this presentation, but Rich, we have some new guidelines that went out about parent organizations. You may have heard a thing, boosters, PTAs, TEFs, because there's a lot of practice all over the place and a lot of money flowing in different places. So this is kind of a, first of all, on that, right, we have the guidelines and we'll work with people to get in alignment over time. But similar here, like this is a PTA effort. Obviously, part of this is PTAs can't act independently of a school administration. and I don't want to say that any have thought they can, but it needs to be that if the PTA is raising funds, it's still a decision that Michael, as the principal, makes, hopefully in partnership with them, but the PTA can't say, hey, we want to do this project, go raise the money and make it happen. So there's work being done, and that's not a Salisbury PTA thing, that's just relationships in general with organizations across the district. So yes, the money would be completely managed and collected throughout the duration of the campaign until, if 350 is the goal, until 350 is reached, and then we work through that process of transfer documentation, purchasing.
So it's going to be like, because you read things.
Yes,
I don't want to be in the paper.
Yes, it will not be in the paper.
Question. So Brian, did you say 350 is the cost?
I forget the exact.
Our goal is 380.
Yeah.
Okay. And so by funneling this through the city ultimately, right, Salisbury, they have to put this out to bid?
No, so we'll manage all of that.
What?
We're managing all of that. Yep. So in it, we would have to follow the same bid laws. Actually, all of the providers, the one that they've done a lot of work with, is on the state contract. So we're able to work with a state contract provider. But yes, we have to follow all the procurement laws, yes. Yeah.
And I just think about years ago when we built the dugouts on this campus, there was none of that.
Well, it was voluntary.
It was done lickety-split.
Yeah.
Everything donated.
And again, there may be a lickety-split 380,000. I haven't used that term in a long time. Thank you for bringing that back. But maybe there is a huge donor out there that wants their name on it, and this happens quicker. But yes, this would be, and I would say dugouts are easy. You get an engineer to stamp the design and sign off on it. Playgrounds are very different. The safety requirements in playgrounds, this will be a licensed contractor that does playgrounds.
I think Caitlin's just making,
The last one.
Exactly.
I think Caitlin's just making sure there's not a slush fund anywhere.
I've heard that phrase before.
It's changed, this is unorthodox, right? Because you're having a parent organization tied to the school raising the money, and then you're donating the money in essence to the school, to the school, then doing the build, and then giving it to the town. So I just want to make sure that from the very start, there aren't any, I don't want like little holes in it that people can kind of like pick at. I just want to make sure we're thinking it through because it's not super clean and it's not intuitive. And I get why it's being done. It needs to be done that way. I don't think there's no other way to do it. But I just want to make sure that like publicly we're having that very big conversation, like we're all aware of how this goes because it is going to be a lot of trust and a lot of like movement through the process because ultimately it's going to be handed back to Parks and Recs and then become a partnership. So it's just kind of going very oblong.
Well, that's the way we did SES anyways, right?
No, SES had other
That's the way we, with the building itself, yeah.
And then handed
Theoretically,
it
we
back
thought
to
we
the
owned
town.
it, yes.
Yes, and that's what I don't want to go back.
Yeah, and I mean,
that.
this is all really, I would say it's actually really seamless, right? There isn't a lot of, there are kind of transfers that we've got to document well. And I think then the one thing to make sure that they're clear is through the fundraising that Salisbury owns Salisbury Elementary. So we're fundraising for a playground for Salisbury Elementary that the town owns. School has purview over it, oversight over it, but in essence, this is a donation to the town of Salisbury. So, yeah. 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 So I thought that was a quick introduction. Other questions about the construct of how we're doing this before Michael gets to talk about the fun part, which is the actual really cool playground? No? By the time we get to the portrait of a learner, you're all going to be snoozing.
Wait till the
Ooh, the professional development plan. We should do that first. Michael, would you love to talk about this?
Sure. And I want to say thank you for all the questions. And, so many of us who are involved in the project are embarking on this sort of thing for the first time. So it absolutely will take, these sorts of probing questions and checking that we're making sure we're doing the right thing and, sending a very clear message publicly about how this will work. So I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and I will try to be brief because I know you have a lot to get to. I just want to start off by recognizing the members of our Playground Project Committee who have been, helping contribute to the work. Lori Buckley, Sean Timmons, Jill Harrison, Sherry Herdman, Sean Jansen, Adam Lachinsky, Jeff Newman, and Jane Keeler. And then also wanted to recognize, we've spoken with several members of the town, Adrian Marchand from the Conservation Commission, Jen Rockatendance from the Park and Rec Commission, Lisa Pearson. We visited the whole Park and Rec Committee to pick their brain about how to begin this whole process, and then just thank Superintendent Forget as well, because as I mentioned, it's our first time embarking on this sort of journey for so many of us, so there have been a lot of questions. I just want to take a moment to sum up kind of how we arrived to the brochure that we'll speak about, and I will do my best to keep it brief. But as I'm sure many, if not all of you are aware, in the 2023 to 2024 school year, our play structure for grades 1 through 6 was given a safety evaluation, and it was deemed unsafe, so it needed to be closed, and the structure was ultimately removed. So the students are in grades 1 through 6 are without a play structure. So from there, we did an inventory of what the students had to play with, and we had 1 Gaga pit, 1 mini basketball hoop, 2 4-square courts, and a large baseball diamond that's often used for kickball for recess options out back, which, as you can imagine, are quite limited options for our students when they go out for their recess to play. So from there, we certainly, decided we would like to pursue building a new play structure. The recommendation from the safety evaluation that was conducted on the previous play structure was to not build on the same site because of its proximity to the vernal pool that's behind the school. There was some sinking concerns, so they recommended that we explore elsewhere, which is how we arrived at looping in the Conservation Commission, who helped us look at a few potential sites, and we were able to identify one that we thought would work best to preserve the paved area, to preserve the kickball field, because the students do really enjoy using that, but to build a structure. And so the site we identified is almost like a back triangle at the very back of the field that abuts the paved area behind the school. The very best part of this project so far was surveying the students for what they wanted to see on their playground. Credit to Mrs. Keeler and one of our lunch monitors, Samantha Phillips, who invited every single student in the school up to a giant poster and gave them 2 stickers to vote on basically a chart of common playground items, so we could get some quick visual data on what the students really wanted to see on the playground. It was the most exciting day in the cafeteria last year, and the students, their feedback was taken by 3 of our 6th graders who crunched the data, Madeline, Valentina, and Mila, and they turned that into a chart for us to show just basically the results of the student survey. And so we were able to send that to the companies, the vendors that we were working with, to ask, here's our students' feedback, what they would really like to see on their play structure, what can you make work within a budget that the Playground Project Committee had determined was hopefully reasonable. And so they sent us some designs. The Playground Project Committee, can't get through that phrase tonight, met with representatives from all 3 vendors to hear about just, more about their plan, what supports they could offer the committee as we work through this, maintenance plans, just their local playgrounds that we could go out and take a look at. I want to give a shout out to Sean Jansen, who I think visited every single playground in a 15-mile radius and crunched data on what was there. It was amazing. So we heard from the 3 vendors, and the committee ultimately voted on the design and the vendor that we felt most comfortable kind of moving forward with at this stage, right? Without fully forgetting about the others, right? Just kind of, okay, we think we might want to pursue, this seems like our strongest option. So at that point, we had some renderings sent over. Another shout out to SES parent Rick Knight, who was able to take those renderings and make photorealistic renderings that show what, the playground would look on the site. They're absolutely incredible.
Michael, can I just interrupt? I apologize. The flyer, I only added the first page. You just have the information. If you can just click refresh, I just added the backside of the flyer, which has all the really great pictures that Michael is referencing. And as I was looking at it going, oh, so they now have what you're talking about.
Awesome.
Sorry.
So again, that's an SES parent, Rick Knight, who reached out and offered to put those together for us, which are just amazing. So that's how we arrived here. The project committee has been spending the summer kicking around how to structure this sponsorship opportunity for local businesses as a way to raise money. Certainly not the only way that we're pursuing fundraising. We will be, looking into grants, and as we just talked about, the PTA will be hosting, fundraisers that will contribute to the project. But we spent, I would say both of the summer meetings we had working our way through this, and credit to Jeff Newman, who's a local business owner, who helped us really think about how to design this in a way that gives business owners the information in a really efficient way where they're not going to have to go digging, right? His feedback was really, really valuable. To kind of the business sponsorship, list there, and to Narissa's concern, right, all of these are just initial ideas, certainly not things that we're adamant about. We were trying to kind of figure out how to incentivize businesses to participate, and our team is absolutely open to feedback on how to improve that and how to make sure we're buttoned up in that regard. So that's how we arrived at the brochure, and that is why we are here seeking your feedback and input and approval.
Thank you, Michael.
I said I would be brief, and then I was anything but. So
that was brief. That was good. Sorry for the interruption. So again, this is not a typical process. So the idea was to get, in essence, it's kind of like planning approval on the concept. I know, Narissa, you mentioned the permanent feature on the school website. That, shame on me, because I didn't catch that, and I could have told Michael that's a no-fly zone. But yeah, I think dedicated social media spotlight is one thing, but any permanent, no donors have ever gotten a permanent naming on our website.
Makes sense.
So yeah, other thoughts? Questions?
I mean, I guess my main thought is if the PTA is doing the fundraising, they need to be the ones fulfilling this. It can't be the district, right? Because it really needs to be the PTA's social media. It needs to be the PTA's website. If we're doing signage, it's at PTA events, not at districts events, and that's not real clear for me.
Yeah, I apologize, because that is the intention. It's just not clear on the brochure, so we can absolutely revise that. But when it talks about digital promotion signage, the idea that we talked about at the meetings was for PTA events.
Okay.
So we can revise that to make that clearer, because I think that also would be helpful for businesses to consider when they're making their decisions.
Yes, is a very big difference, for sure. And then I guess one other thing I would caution you on is that there is federal regulation on providing a gift in return for a donation. So I would just make sure you're doing your homework on that, because it's a very small percentage of what's actually given you. It has to be a token item. So I don't know what you were considering about sort of giving back in some of these, but it's just something that, it's PTA at that point. It's not like a district issue, but they should be considering as part of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can work through that with you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
I mean, I guess to say for me, I would rather see a full update on this before we have a vote to make sure that we are good. So I'd rather have this come back.
And full update, that includes what, anything addition? Again, like clarifications around.
Mostly clarifications around, whose properties or resources these are, because when I first read it, I really thought it was mostly because it starts with the school thing at the top, and there's also one, I think, toward the bottom. So, down toward the bottom under the crew member one. Yeah, and I was like, are these all
either SES or TRSD, resources that we're using here. If it's all SES PTA, I am much more comfortable, right? That's a whole different story than them promising sort of district resources in return for something that the PTA is fundraising for.
Are you concerned with the contact being Michael? Did I hear you say that? Or no, you're more wanting the clarity around the recognition and the social media? I guess I would say I want it going through, right? I feel like if it's coming through the school, I want Michael's name on the front of that, so that, again, it's going back to the relationship we were talking about with all the organizations. It all comes through the school. 100%, yeah.
Because of that being stated, I had a concern when I looked it over, like, everyone, I was like, oh, this is a little mixed, right? But for the contact information, Michael, he is the person who's going to sign off on this project, so I think him being that contact person is fair, right? And it's not like confusing. He's the principal of the school, which it is. He's PTA. Has to fund this project through him. If it were someone else, I think that would remove him from decision making. Right? If it's like the president of the PTA, that would remove Michael off of that like tier, like he's not fine as well. That's how I was looking at it. I don't know if I was looking at it.
Yes, I almost think if it's fundraising related, it should go through the PTA. If it's project related, it should probably go through Michael. But I would also be concerned because the PTA can't, anything that you raise money towards, it has to be used towards that. This is the same thing that we've been going through with the stadium, right? So if the project changed form in the middle, that's a big discussion to have because the PTA has now raised funds toward, right? So I'm not sure Michael can be responsible for that conversation in that the PTA raised the funds toward this vision.
Are you concerned the PTA is going to change?
Well, I'm just, like, let's say you hit through the 3-year mark and you've only raised $130,000 and you decide that we're cutting, whatever, it's going to look very different, right?
You're not saying like you're not concerned with the PTA, but we don't want to do the playground, we're going to build an argument. You're concerned. I want to clarify. You're concerned more like the scope of the project.
I'm concerned if Michael's the go-to guy with questions on the playground itself and the PTA is the one raising funds towards this particular playground, that if something changes, it just needs, I don't want Michael to be on the hook for having said, this is what you're getting, and then the PTA making a decision to say, we can't make it to that. And you can always go back, if you know your donors, right, you can always go back to your donors and say, we're making this change, can you give us a acceptance in writing, right, that you're good with us making this change and still using your money towards it. But that's going to have to be like a tight relationship with you guys, I would have to say, to make sure that that's properly handled.
And we've talked with our vendor because they've built a lot of, it's a playground company, right? They've gone through a lot of projects, so they have seen instances where there's been a fundraising goal set, not met, and they've talked through how, they still, partner with the group, right? But the vision has to be reduced because financially, right, it can't support the original idea. So it is, yes, we would have to return to donors and say, are you okay with, continuing to contribute even though the vision might not look so wonderful and beautiful?
So we're going to bring it back? Everyone's good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jane. The next item is
Now
the
you can go home. Go, both of you.
portrait of a learner.
Are we doing Portrait of a Learner next? You don't want to go back on schedule?
Where do you want to go?
Say again?
Which way would you like?
It does. It's your preference at
That
this
just
point.
happens to
There's
be
no one
what's
else waiting
Right.
for that, so.
That just happens to be what's next.
Okay.
Okay, come back at 9:05.
9 o'clock, not 9:05. It's only 8:53. Oh, 5 minutes.
Portrait of a learner. Portrait of a learner.
Oh, I guess we can go back in order now if you want, unless Anna's going home after Portrait of a Learner. Am I going home after Portrait of a Learner?
I can answer that now.
I don't have a name tag.
Whatever you want to do, as far as order.
That's what I prefer.
So we're going to do Portrait of a Learner. Okay, so wow, this is very loud. It is now 9 o'clock and we're getting to the rest of the agenda. So you have materials in your packet. I was going to show your packet digitally. I was going to show you the video. That video, my understanding is you've seen that, and so have a sense of what it is that we are putting out as our portrait. So you'll remember this has been a topic of discussion for over 2 years now. It feels a little anticlimactic to be given it 5 minutes now, but this was launched formally on Monday at Convocation. This is work that has been done by a design team, hours and hours, debating words like persistent versus perseverance that turned into the word determined, right? So just the power of the words that are on the screen behind me it's a simple representation, but that's our hope, is that because of the simplicity, it can become a driving force in everything we do. So kept talking about this as our newly developed Portrait of a Learner, because this is not final, right? This will never be final. It will remain a work in progress as things change. We started with a definition of learning to say this is what we mean when we say learning, and then we winnowed down with student groups and shared information with families, the faculty as a whole, to arrive at these core competencies. So the core competencies of course it did. Community member.
Let's see if you can do it.
I know, right? I can't do it on the spot. Problem solver, communicator, innovator, and collaborator. And then the idea that the dispositions, the descriptors, if you will, that are on the ring on the outside, we talked about, if you look at other portraits of a learner, they talk about a skillful innovator or a whatever, right? Call it skillful innovator. But as we talked about those dispositions, we felt strongly that sometimes you might be a mindful community member, but you also need to be a mindful collaborator, and you need to be an inclusive collaborator, but you really should also be an inclusive communicator. So that's where this concept of the wheel, I believe it was born in Michael's office, and it was Patrick Kelly in his best creative arts and craft moments that literally made it out of paper. And so that's where this is where we landed. Simple. Ultimately, right, we want this to be, our focus has been on, this is not a new thing, right? This is a litmus test for every decision we make. We want this to become part of the work that we do when we're talking about the district strategy or setting committee goals or my goals or our school improvement plans, or if it's a decision being made in the classroom or on the playing field, that we're constantly reminding all of our students that these 5 roles, these core competencies, is what we're driving towards. And that is unique for every student, right? That skillful innovator may look different for a student who's capable of AP physics versus a student who may not be capable of AP physics. But wherever that student is, we've talked in recent years about belonging and identifying and working with students and creating that relationship. This is another step forward in aligning all of our work. So I'm excited about this. Again, this was developed pre-K through 12. There are other districts. Historically, this has been done at the high school level. Now there are districts that are trying to push it down. I'm thrilled with the 2-year process. There were times that it felt stalled. Is that a fair description? Because we were going through spending a lot of time really digging into detail. But at the other end of that, we have a product that every educator had an opportunity to speak into pre-K through 12. We had arts teachers and physics teachers and kindergarten teachers sitting at the same table talking about this. So trying to think of what else. So the way this is going to roll out, right, our first work is to identify where this already exists. There's a lot of practice in place where this already exists. So it's first identifying that, and then over the years to come, realigning and again using as at that litmus test. So of course it's gone again. Our plan is in September. In September, we're going to be focusing on just familiarity with the language, familiarity with the 5 roles, the 5 competencies, in getting this language into place. This was work that all of the principals took yesterday. They shared a little bit or Monday at convocation about what that's going to look like for their school, and then that was part of their opening faculty meetings. So how are we going to just get this practice into the general ethos of the school, into systems that already exist? And then we're going to focus, in October, we're going to focus on being a community member. In November, on being a communicator. We're going to skip December, because there's enough going on in December. In January, we'll focus on being a collaborator. In February, on problem solver. And then in March, on being an innovator. So that will be the formal rollout in focusing on those dispositions, those months. Talked at P&A about reformatting the student of the month that you celebrated each month. Each school in those months is going to pick students who have exemplified that and identify those students. And we talk with P&A about kind of piggybacking, again, because we are aligned from top to bottom, piggybacking and celebrating those students each month here at the committee meeting, and not have it be just one, but maybe the student from each school that was chosen, and bring those 5 students here and celebrate them that way. So again, the work that you're doing is the same work that is happening in the classrooms each and every day. So I think I'll leave it at that. If there are any questions, I would just tell you the information will be shared. It's obviously gone out and been worked on this week with faculty and staff. I'll share this next week with families. There's a 2-pager that was included that outlines the overall vision. The 7-minute and 37-second video will be obviously shared as well. We have that up on YouTube. And then there's linked in here, to come up with a better term, they're I can statements. And so in essence, you have broken down, and that was included in the packet, what we expect each student to be able to do, and that's disaggregated for a lower elementary, where it's a more simplistic statement about what it means, what they can do as a collaborator, versus what an upper elementary and then a secondary student. You can see the language gets more advanced. But again, putting that on, we're going to have posters generated. We're working on that. And again, similar to that attendance language, where everyone's seeing the expectation across the board, those posters at the high school will have that elementary language, and the language, the posters, the same posters at the elementary will have that high school language, so students can see how we're expecting them to progress as students and really as humans, right? This is about the soft skills that will make students successful, not just the knowledge. So that's the plan, a little bit about how we rolled it out each month, and then I think it's, I'm excited. It feels like it has struck a chord, and people are kind of seeing how this is not a new thing, but whether you're a science teacher or a kindergarten teacher or a middle school math teacher, that this can be, or you work in the arts or you're a coach, that this has application across the board. It's not about the content and what we teach and how we teach. It's what we're expecting of our students on a high level. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have a question?
I just want to say I've seen so many initiatives over years, and the simplicity of this, the ability to grasp it very, very quickly, I have not seen very often, and really think that will be a big part in why it's successful. It's nicely streamlined.
Thank you. And we talked a lot about that, right? And sometimes it felt a little simplistic for a high school student, and we kept talking about, even in the I can statements, in the definition, right? That concept, as problem solver, students must not give up when facing challenges, look at problems from different angles, and work toward fair solutions for everyone. We wordsmithed those to make sure that those were understandable, at least, even if there were words that a younger student didn't understand, that it could be understood by a parent who's reading this, or not someone who's just speaking educational jargon all the time, but just as a community, that we all have a role, right? We all have a role in supporting this work. So as much as sometimes it felt a little simplistic, I think that's actually the magic of it at the end. And again, a huge shout out to the design team that has spent so much time working on this. And I appreciate Anna's leadership too, I should say, in spearheading a lot of the work to varying degrees as well. So, questions, thoughts?
Thank you for all the work that you guys have done. The next item is the fall open house dates. The fall open house dates.
So they're in the agenda for you to take a look at. I don't know that there's anything specific other than we just generally post those in the agenda so you have them and are aware of them. There's been some historical practice of, it's been a while since it's happened. The school committee used to be available, make a presentation, and just make an announcement and such, but generally open houses have moved away from those large gatherings into smaller classrooms. So mostly just for your information so you're aware that
Anybody
they're
see
happening.
any issues with the open house dates?
First, just noting that the two schools have the same night, and I know that there's limited calendar options and all of that. But the other thing I just wanted to ask is, are all three elementary schools doing the sort of roving open house format again? I know that Dale did a similar format the last couple of years.
I was going to say, I haven't heard that they're not doing that. I haven't had a conversation, but I can double check. But my assumption is they're continuing. And I know Patty coming into Newbury is coming in and learning and listening, is not changing practice right away. So I will confirm, but my understanding is yes, it'll be the same.
The next item is the 2025-2026 school committee goals. On September 13th, the school committee has a workshop scheduled to develop goals for 2025-2026. Is there anything the committee members would like to have prepared for the workshop, like information, specific supplies, or a presenter?
I think the one thing maybe would be a projector with centralized access. I'm assuming there'll be discussion on the survey. So having access to something where we can display the survey results. The UMass, sorry.
Right.
Brain was just jumping there.
So what's the question?
No, I was just saying, like, I'm guessing that something is going to revolve around, some of the survey results, some of the goals will be, in addition, I'm assuming also this building. But there's not much to prepare for that. But I think, in light of discussion of where the school committee might want to place a goal around the UMass survey results, that it might be good to have a projector available wherever with a laptop that has access to those.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. I was going to say, we look. You have data you have access to the dashboard.
We do individually. I'm assuming. I might be wrong, but I know people hit like various different hotspots,
100%.
sort of out of those results. So I assumed at this workshop that there would be some discussion of people's various
For sure.
kind of.
And so, I'm sorry, missed the beginning of it. So it's just requesting, we'll be able to project for sure.
Yes.
Sorry, missed the first few words. That would have clarifying.
No other opinions? The next item is the summer program update. Shannon Nolan is not here.
I'm happy to share the summer programming update. Before I talk about special education, though, we also had Kids Club at all three schools. So we had 162 students participate in Kids Club across the three sites, whether they were doing a 2-week session or they did all summer. I've just been seeing like lots of great stuff happening. Kids look like they're having fun. They have the fire departments coming, they're cooking, they're baking, they're making pickles, they're doing Mission Impossible themes. My favorite one that I just heard about was the week of Kids Clubs Got Talent was a theme of one of the sessions. So I just like that we can provide like a safe, a fun, affordable, fairly affordable place for our students to be during the summer. So we have 3 coordinators who are putting on fantastic programming at each school. So I am also going to share the summer programming update that Shannon has left for me. So there were 62 students who attended the special education summer program, 46 at elementary, 6 at middle school, and 10 at the high school. And then an additional 37 students were receiving special education tutoring. Highlights from elementary. Joelle Coleman, the special ed coordinator, coordinated the programming at Newbury, did a great job supporting students, families, and staff, and Shannon heard nothing but positive feedback about that. There were 7 classrooms with 46 elementary students ranging from pre-K to 6, all at Newbury, and in addition to their daily programming in which they were working towards their student goals, they had ice cream and crepe making, some creative crafting, and outdoor fun on the playgrounds there. And then I think they ended the summer program with a visit from Curious Creatures. At the middle school, there was a really strong emphasis on developing life skills and social and communication for special education students. So their students were meeting weekly with the speech therapist, working on IEP goals, but they also had weekly community-based field trips, providing students with opportunities for learning and social engagement. So students were visiting grocery stores, local parks, and were able to learn about, looks like, animals such as pigs, chickens, and goats. And then also did some fun kind of field trips for ice cream and pizza. I do have an update specifically from the TLC program where the focus really was on maintaining functional academic, pre-vocational, and independent living skills. So I have, and I'm going to pass this around, I apologize, I only have one, but it's worth taking a look at these pictures. There's some examples of practicing consumer math skills by making shopping lists, shopping at local stores, creating and staying on a budget. They, did a number of different field trips to 3 Sweet Peas, Walgreens, Market Basket, Marshall's, Tender Crop, and learning about the job skills required at each one of those places. And then they did some focus on independent living skills as well, doing some cooking and baking, choosing healthy recipes to make, and then definitely take a look at the leisure activities at the end as well. I think they had some choice in what they were able to do, and we have some great pictures of our students swimming, playing basketball, taking art lessons, bike riding, and exploring the rail trail. So I really like that they're able to be, the students in all the programs are sort of enjoying the learning and the wonderful things in the community that we have as well. So let me send this one around. Sorry, I don't have more.
Does anybody have any questions for Anna? Thank you. The next item is the MASC-MASS Joint Conference. The conference for our professional organization is coming in November. Is anyone interested in attending?
Apparently, I'm going.
And staying in touch.
Alone.
What days are you going? Friday?
Friday. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going any others yet. I haven't looked that far ahead in my schedule, but I will definitely get to it by the deadline.
Okay, if anybody changes their mind,
Let me know. I'd love company.
I'll be going as well,
Oh, good.
as well as I'm sure.
I agreed to do a presentation on Thursday morning, so I'll be there Thursday and Friday. And just call it out, the awards ceremony for Narissa is Friday night. They moved it from Thursday to Friday night.
Yep. Just because Narissa was going.
I know, right? It's breakfast on Saturday.
And I'll say the really relevant sessions usually end at noon on Friday because everyone leaves afterwards and goes home.
But maybe that's good because everyone could drive down for Friday night just to celebrate you.
yeah.
Probably could get extra tickets. We'll work on that, Linda. Thank you all for volunteering.
Okay, the next item is the DCC meeting. In the agenda, you'll see a proposed list of meeting dates for the District Communication Committee. Does anyone have any major conflicts with these dates? We will also be bringing these to the first DCC meeting.
I just noticed that the September 11th is the same day as the high school open house.
High school open house.
I think you should move the open house.
Yeah, I mean, I missed that when you put out the DCC dates because we set the open house dates. We were fighting about those dates and where we ended up with two on the same day, and I realized that, and that was unavoidable. But yeah, I missed that when you put out the tentative DCC dates. I would argue a DCC is easier to change than an open house at this point. We can't do the Thursday after because that's the middle
I was
school.
going to say, I feel like this is one we were boxed into.
Right.
When we were going through the DCC schedule, I don't think we had a lot of options for this one, because we also didn't want to do September 11th because it's September 11th, but I don't think we had choices if we wanted to stay on a Thursday.
Right. So that one may have
Logistically, could
to,
it be going on here during open house?
I feel like that actually happened one year. I think that would be challenging. I think if we were going to do it on the same night, I missed that. We probably should start by rotating to another town rather than attempting to be on this campus on open house night. That would not be a pleasant parking experience for our town partners. Because I feel like, is open house, are they both 6:30? Yeah, they're both 6:30. Which, DCC or? No, I think DCC is easier. Yeah.
we could always ask them for a different day that week.
Are you looking at me? I'm looking at people and you're looking at me.
No, we're trying to figure it out.
So your committee meeting is on the 17th. So you could go the following week if you wanted to keep, nope, there's a school building committee that night.
Well, can you go the Thursday after the school committee meeting?
That's the 18th. That's the middle school open house.
Yeah, you go in from one open house into another open house, and then the
Right.
25th is the school building committee meeting, so that ties up a bunch of people.
Well, maybe we can ask them for September 10th.
I was going to say, that week, if you kept it the same week and moved it to Wednesday, that could work.
I'll send out an email to them for September 10th.
If that doesn't work, I think the only thing you can do is just switch location, and
Yeah, I think if that's, I mean, not all committee members go to DCC, so if there were those that needed to be at open house and others that didn't, you could change the location probably easier than polling dates. So if we switched it up and asked,
I'll ask Rowley if they can switch to September 11th, and then Triton can be October 9th.
or Salisbury.
Well, Salisbury's hosting,
Yeah, they're hosting the presentation.
Right,
The
November
finance
6th.
presentation, so we can't switch
so
that.
I'm just going to ask Rowley if we can swap October 9th to them hosting on September 11th. Okay? Okay. The next item is the superintendent's report. The superintendent will now give his report.
All right, lightning round. The year opened. We are under review by the Department of Ed. So I believe the song is "Everything is Awesome." So Anna, that will be her wheelhouse. It is not just a curriculum, student services, accountability, overview and review. It does also include operations and financial, but Anna will take the lead on this. Everyone will get involved. These are the not fun ones. This is not the, what's the other one? The coordinated program reviews where it's specifically about special education 504 and civil rights. This is a total operations of the entire district. They do on-site visits. They spend a week here in classrooms and you name it. So just feel free to take a look at the link and the details there. AIR, American Institutes for Research, will be the ones here on site conducting it. Everyone we've spoken to who has undergone it has said it's a lift. It's definitely a lift. I was going to say, is Anna still looking at me? Sorry. Just to confirm, we did get, you remember we had a grant at Salisbury that was paying for an additional special educator, and we were co-teaching. The grant went away. We were assuming it would definitely not happen. We were awarded a one-year extension, very much assuming it's a one-year thing. We did hire an educator that it will act like an interventionist, or will be an interventionist rather than a special educator, but also supporting co-teaching. And so out the gate, the assumption is it's a one-year thing. Hopefully, miracles happen, maybe grants extend, but that was certainly a welcome surprise. We did also get this early literacy high dosage tutoring grant, so this will, what was the total value, 140,000?
150.
150. So maybe Anna can give you some details on this. This was a late arrival, too.
It was a late arrival and a surprise, because I thought I just filled out a form that said, I'm interested in learning more, and then all of a sudden I realized we had been matched with this company. So it is primarily targeting first graders. We've been matched with Ignite Reading, and using our fall DIBELS scores, we are first going to be targeting students who are falling in intensive or strategic in grade 1. Each school, each of the 3 elementaries has 20 seats, and there'll be those 20 students at each school will be meeting for 15 minutes every day with the same tutor working on this scope and sequence of reading skills, which is aligned with the science of reading. They help us with assessment, with progress monitoring. We have data meetings with them. I've had a number of meetings. I just had an onboarding meeting with them today, and it seems like it's going to be a great organization to work with and very supportive of the work that we're doing here and how they can sort of complement the good things that are already happening. So as students graduate from that, ideally they're like moving out and into core. As the program moves on, we just move somebody else into those seats. So the plan is to have that, our launch date is the first week in October. And good news is we have more than enough with the 60 seats that far exceeds the number of students we have in first grade who at the end of kindergarten fell in strategic and intensive. So we're then going to be able to be a little more targeted with who we provide those additional seats to.
So good news there. Thank you, Anna. Just to bring your attention to a donation, because I know there were some questions asked that I heard. How do we have money to put in a new patio at the stadium when we can't balance the budget? So this was funding that was left over from the fundraising efforts, the BRIC program years and years ago. And so TEF has held on to this money. TEF did not want to hold on to the money anymore. So they've been saying we want to spend this money on the stadium. So we looked at different ideas out front. I brought to you in the past some landscaping and stuff, but now we right out front, we'll assume, could be touched by a building renovation project. I think we've all confirmed that nothing will happen inside the confines of that building in that fence when we go to renovate. And so in essence, if you've been in there, the area that was that fake grass and had a couple picnic tables on it, it now is a paver patio, and there'll be 4 installed, the powder-coated picnic tables, the 4-seater picnic tables, and they'll be installed right there. So beautiful, it will look beautiful. It's already almost done. I think we're waiting for the tables now. So just to make you aware of that, that was a targeted donation through TEF, not something we could say, hey, can I spend that on something else? Just to bring your attention to the Mahood versus Taylor ruling, which gives parents access to opt out of instruction that they would like to. There is a recommendation that MASC put out. I am recommending we not adopt any language. I would say that's that statement that they put together is a nothing burger, right? It just kind of states the obvious. So there's nothing that we will do to change our practice. If someone requests, we'll give them access and give them the right to opt out. Our policies already allow that, so there's nothing new that's needed. I think this was for places that feel like they need to make a statement, my suggestion to you is let's see what happens. There will be guidance that will come out federally. There will be guidance that comes out at the state level. So let's wait and see what that guidance says. In the meantime, Anna and I have had conversations, right, because it talks about a list of all curriculum. So we're working toward that, realizing that could become a reality. But just to make you aware of that, that is potentially an impact for us. DESE put out a new resource, AI in Schools. There is a guidance document as well as an AI for Educators resource that they provided. You'll recognize a name on that resource, the Kulowik Group. So this was the work that Greg had been doing kind of concurrently when he was here as our Director of Technology, and then obviously it grew larger than something he could do on the side. So it's a phenomenal resource. I think there's a lot of good information there. I know this is something Paul has been digging into. So this is something we're going to have to spend more time and energy talking about. This is so much bigger than are we worried about students cheating and having them AI write papers for them. It's so much larger than that. So feel free to just share or take a look through that. And then the final 2 things here are just the communications that I've sent out for the building project. And I'll give you a quick update in a little bit on that. Just some other quick updates that my list of notes that I should have put in here and didn't. For buses, you remember we're running 19 bus routes. We did not go to 21. We are finally going to roll out the app, the parent app. We're going to pilot it at the middle school and high school first and see how that goes. We're hopeful. As of 2 days ago, the other person working at the terminal is no longer working for NRT. So we're, can I say, Rich, you're cautiously optimistic? Or not quite there yet? Working on that. Okay, he's not going to talk. But he hasn't left yet, right? So he is still here. So it is, right, so there's nothing new, right? We have spent a lot of time talking with NRT about communications, and there are some things that have gotten better. We are hopeful, but they continue to deal with staffing issues. We understand there are 19, we have 19 runs ready to go, but it's the buses haven't rolled yet, and so Rich is ready.
Yeah, there's some updates to routes. Sorry. Yeah, there's some updates to routes that families who were really concerned about them, I've already communicated with those families individually.
What I'm waiting for at this point is NRT to send me the updated routes so that I can basically redo the sheets that we have on the website and send those out to families again. So I was hoping to do that today, but I don't have them yet. So as soon as I get them, they'll go out. The parent app information is scheduled to go out on Sunday, because if parents were to download that software today, every time that bus driver took like a spin around town to try out their, do a test run, it would ping the parent's phone like multiple times. So NRT was like, you should send this out on the weekend. So that's what we did. So middle and high school parents should get those emails on Saturday.
All right. And we're hoping for better times. On this campus, you saw communication that went out about asbestos. This is a building built in the 60s, so there is asbestos, we know that. So there has been, we've tested fairly routinely the wall in the gym, right? We keep talking about the wall in the gym. That brown stuff was tested. There's no asbestos in that. So anything that's coming in has been asbestos-free, but there is some of the concrete, almost like the plaster, like the finished concrete, that does have 3% asbestos. So where that is becoming mostly water damaged and becoming loose, could potentially be friable. So there's some spots on the ceilings around here that they want to hit. They don't see it as an issue yet, but they're saying proactively, the band room, the middle school gym, so they were here today, they're here tomorrow. They're basically here right into the weekend doing the abatement work.
Yeah, they're set up in the cafeteria right now. So the cafeteria and this area up here, these areas actually weren't tested, but they're similar enough to the other, the materials that did test, that just out of caution, we really wanted to hit these two.
So these are proactive.
And the caf as well.
And the cafeteria is proactive. So it wasn't a clear the building, right? We're having a meeting here tonight. Between the abatement, there's some flooring work in the band room, and then probably about $10,000 worth of roofing work, patching specifically around the middle school gym and that band room. We're probably looking at about $50,000. So this will be, we had the discussion about the building project stabilization. I can tell you that we've confirmed we do not have to set that money aside. We can spend that $1.7 million out of stabilization, which means that we have that money available for we've talked about this, we need that money because this stuff is going to happen, right? We have to assume that between now and 5-6 years when we have a completed building, that these types of things are going to crop up. So thankfully we have that money. Didn't want to be spending that within a month of the start of the year, but here we are. Also, to just make you aware, we've been working with the town of Rowley on a septic system issue, and then with Salisbury on a air conditioning issue. Salisbury, they're very well aware, right? They own the building. The building is now 26 years old. Working with them towards a total chiller, if you will, replacement for the rooftop units. There was a project or a repair about just under $20,000 that got the system back online and should hold for the couple years until they can have those replaced, but there is a plan. What are you going to say? No. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, the parts came in.
Oh, the part for the chillers. Okay. So those should be set for the start of the school year. The septic system at Pine Grove, we're still trying to figure out. There are some issues that go way back to the design and installation and routine maintenance we were supposed to do, but it's in a manhole that's 1.5 feet underground. So clearly we were never trained or shown what to do because it's not in an open manhole. So working through that, again, working with the town of Rowley and the town of Salisbury, and they're paying those costs because they are building specific related and larger costs. Just give you a quick update on school resource officer. Everything that transpired, we'll just say. We now went through a school year without a resource officer in the building. It's largely been one or two officers, the chief, the deputy chief, that are just here and present, and that's worked. It's actually been great. I feel like there's actually been a kind of a routine presence that's been different. So just to share with you, we are interested in moving back towards a school resource officer. I met with Chief Fisher, I think that was Monday. today's Wednesday, or that was yesterday, that was only yesterday, to talk through a plan. The Newbury Police Department needs to be fully staffed before an SRO can be assigned. The SRO isn't a hire, it's an assignment for an existing officer. So she does not expect to be fully staffed in the very, very near future. So we were going through the MOU and the procedures to make sure that any and all of the procedures that are outlined in that very extensive MOU, we have set up and ready to go, so that when we bring that back and are ready to go, we're set. But the plan is to have an SRO again in the future. I don't think it's happening anytime really soon, but just wanted to share that. Competency determination, I expect that will be coming back to you in October. I don't think we're way off, but there's been more guidance issued in perfect DESI fashion late, and so there will likely be some tweaks. I don't think it'll be graduation requirements. It would be the competency determination and minor changes, but we'd be bringing that back to you. Again, expect it'll come in December. Nope, October, sorry. And then just to confirm, on 9/13, on September 13th, workshop, which that's now sounding like a very loaded workshop. I had talked with the chair about, you notice we didn't do the district strategy tonight. So to bring the district strategy in draft form, rather than a presentation that you're just getting, bring it in draft form for you to review, as well as my goals in draft form, so that we can talk about your goals, my goals, and the district strategy at one time, so that they're all aligned in a better fashion. I don't know that needs to be a 3-hour exercise, but just an opportunity to have those three topics discussed together. That's it. Personnel report is there. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Does anybody have any questions?
So Brian, on that Mahmood versus Taylor, you said something at the end of your spiel about communicating with Anna. I didn't get that. What was that?
So
front or something?
Or part of the ruling is that a comprehensive list of all curriculum and instructional materials is available in each school office, which is a daunting task, right? To think that every single curriculum resource, Anna could give you a list of all the formal curriculum that we're using, easy. Every curricular resource is a very different thing. So that's the stuff we've been talking about, how to put that type of a list together, and is that even feasible? But certainly in the interim of formal guidance, we're ready to, if any parent does come forward and opt out, that we have the systems in place, as we have in the past. It's not uncommon, have the opportunity to come forward
How do
and opt out.
parents know that they have the right?
Say that again?
How do parents know that they have the right without this kind of language in the handbook?
I mean, it's in your policies, very standard. And there is, I have to go back and look. There's a reference in there. There's not a section about opting out of curriculum in the handbooks. But yeah, that's a valid question. And I think eventually there should be language. I just don't know that this necessarily changes anything for practice for us. And I think those parents who are interested in opting out are very well aware of their rights to opt out, I guess I would say. I don't say that as a judgment, but
Is there any utility to having a PD session on what Mahmood v. Taylor means?
For
PD?
PD for staff? It's an interesting question. I don't know that if it would be a professional development, because it's a pretty straightforward, what parents have the rights.
Well, I just think that it's a step towards knowing. I mean, you're saying that you don't have access to all the curriculum that every teacher is using in the district. And that's important, but what's really important is what curriculum are we using that would touch upon something that might be objectionable. And I'm just wondering if a PD session could be directed towards that at whatever age those issues are raised in the school district, so that you can hit the ground running because the run-of-the-mill biology class, I mean, nobody cares about that curriculum. It's the ones that touch upon the issues that are the subject of the lawsuit. So I just throw that out there, something to think about.
That's an interesting question.
I would just make the point that from my read of it, the ruling is broad enough that our interpretation of what might be objectionable is too narrow. And really it's a decision that opens the door to not only like major topics, but minor pieces of information that might pop up at any point. And so running a PD on this might be objectionable, be aware of the curriculum or resources that you're using, is narrowing the scope too far. Because it's really saying that any person with a interpretation of their religion has the right to opt out of any particular piece of information that's presented in the school based on that. And we serve multiple religious groups.
I do think once we have clear guidance, that there will absolutely be, whether it's called PD or just information sessions, that there's work that we have to do to internally communicate on how that plays out for sure. I don't know that we have enough clarity yet to have that, but I like the concept. Yeah.
Who are you getting the clear guidance from?
There will eventually be, I mean, there'll be guidance through the state. There'll be federal guidance. Yeah. I mean, this was a court ruling. This wasn't a law that was passed. So there probably could have been guidance developed. We knew it was coming. But yeah.
That was pretty much my point. You put that out. You did follow up with something. Anybody else?
Are you talking about school building committee stuff, or do you want to vote to receive and file the report?
Say that again? I mean, I'm happy to talk about that, or you need to receive and file the report?
Well, I mean, eventually we need to receive and file the report. The next thing on the thing is the middle school, high school project update. So I didn't know if you were intending to, if you wanted. That
was not part of my report. You can receive and file the report, and then we'll talk about the separate agenda item. Is that what you mean?
Okay.
With the
It's in your report.
Right.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. I just did the communication. I think the formal receive and file that because the rest is formal motions and approving stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
August is busy. I'll make a motion to receive and file the monthly report of the superintendent of schools for August 2025.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Middle school, high school project update and feasibility study agreement.
So I guess we can do this fairly quickly. There's a lot of information. You've seen a lot of it, or all of it. We were welcomed in today at the 10 o'clock board meeting. The letter I attached here later on in the day that we got confirming. We had our orientation to start the process. We're next developing or identifying an owner's project manager. And so in essence, we're being accepted early, but we're kind of right on track with what we've been talking about all along for timelines. The question keeps coming up over and over again. Roughly when would this be out for vote? And roughly when would my student, right, if it's a parent, it's when is my child going to be taking advantage of a new building? I've had follow-up because the letter that went out to town officials was CC'd to them, and I had some follow-ups. Tell me again when we're looking to vote. So we're talking about a vote likely in calendar 28. We're talking about a project completion likely in calendar 21 or 31. So we're a long way. It's a long process. So what you have here tonight, just by way of an update, is you've got the full feasibility study agreement. You have a letter from our attorney that says, I'm authorized to sign it as the CEO, but MSBA says, if your local requirements require a vote of the governing board, our attorney said, just have the committee take a vote. So rather than paying lots of money to figure out if by statute you need to approve it, just going to have you take a vote with the language that's included in the recommended action. There's a document that is the certification of that vote that Paul Mayette signs that says yes as the secretary. We took that vote. So that's really the action. It's you already approved the 1.7 million. We now have the full agreement that is, I think, 14 or 15 pages long of legalese that basically says we know there's no promises beyond this. There's no promise of a future project or grant. This is promise to fund a study to arrive at a best solution, and then it's up to you beyond that to go get the money to do a real project or to do the actual project. So you're taking a vote to authorize that feasibility study agreement, period.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just making sure I understand the incentive points document. There's ranges there on incentive points, maintenance, 0 to 2, so on and so forth. Those are like possible ranges based on evidence we submit of what we're planning on doing that could shift the reimbursement rates in that range. Is that correct?
That is correct. So those points get applied to the project itself. Yeah. So in feasibility, you don't get the points. Right. So a lot of the documentation we did over the last 6 months will feed into our practices potential 2 points. We can go towards LEED certification on all the kind of environmental and sustainability factors that we can get more points. But that 47.86 is our baseline for all reimbursable costs. I will say, Matt and I were chatting after the board meeting today. They did talk about changing, proposing, a little bit higher incentive cost reimbursable rates for site work, for FF&E, for furniture and stuff, basically increasing those with inflation. So again, the key will be for the next 7 years is reimbursable costs. It's not the total cost, it's total reimbursable costs. So that will be the job of the building committee and the OPM, is to maximize what is reimbursable. So yes, 47.86 is our floor. Should go up from there.
I'll make a motion to authorize the district to enter into and be bound by the MSBA feasibility study agreement as presented by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and further to authorize the superintendent to execute the feasibility study agreement on behalf of the Triton Regional School District.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item
Thank you. That's all I said.
is 2025-2026 Professional Development Plan. Dr. Bates is going to present the Professional Development Plan for the coming year.
Thank you. I think maybe I'll just share some highlights from this plan, tell you kind of what's different about this. So one thing that's been a little bit different in our processes is we shared a draft of this plan with all educators before they left for the summer. And so everybody had an idea of how the plan was developed, why it was, the focus was on some of these different elements, and an idea of where they were going. All of these activities have been placed into their frontline, our online system, so that we're really focusing on kind of clear communication, which I think is really important when we're trying to differentiate professional development to so many different roles and individuals across the district. So that's been our area of focus. We put some kind of different practices in place this year that have so far been received well. Only 2 days of PD in, plus orientation, but so far so good. Let's see. There was we did a survey of all staff, and there was a overwhelming sort of prioritization of nothing new, but the students in our classes are different than they were 5 years ago, and we need support in how to sort of teach these students who are a little bit different. So the area that sort of rose to the top of all of these PD surveys was social emotional topics, wellness of students. So you'll see that theme threaded throughout. Something else that's different is that all elementary schools have the same professional development schedule and the same areas of focus. I think actually having all of us around the same table at the same time allowed us to make use of more limited resources too, so we're not bringing in multiple people to do the same sort of presentation or facilitate the same learning on different days, that we have a lot more coordinated efforts across the schools. So you can kind of see that theme of supporting students with supporting students that struggle with executive functioning, managing challenging behaviors. Middle school has a book study on belonging in schools, so they're still focusing on that area. And then we do still have some curriculum and instruction focus. We have new math curriculum, grades 7 through 11, so we are supporting that with PD. We've gotten a number of practices up and going. We're sort of reviving our writing prompts process and focusing on writing in the elementary schools, and so we have a day dedicated to that. So some curriculum and instruction, but mostly student support that you'll see threaded throughout there. One other thing is we have developed our own leadership team professional development that's also aligned with the sort of that need about how do we support the students better. And we're going to be reading the School Discipline Fix, Changing Behavior Using Collaborative Problem-Solving Approach. So we have sort of a schedule laid out for the year, reading the book and discussing it in 3 different parts, and then spending time really kind of putting those practices into action and having an opportunity to share with each other what's been successful, what's challenging, and refine our practice as we move throughout the year. So I'm excited to be able to have this component on here where in the past we haven't had. This is what the leadership team is doing in terms of professional development as well.
Does anybody have any questions? And I want to thank you for your time on this. I know it takes a lot of work to collaborate with the teachers of what they want. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the district professional development plan for the 2025-2026 school year as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 2025-2026 school handbooks. The proposed handbooks for the coming year are attached to the agenda. Does anyone have any questions?
Can I say the one thing I added? I just got to call it out. So the cell phone pilot at the high school. So the 5 handbooks, again, you've now changed the attendance language to be consistent throughout. Everything else is bulleted there as far as what was, policies that changed. At the high school, I was able to talk to Patrick. We were talking about this in policy subcommittee. A message went out yesterday ahead of your voting that tonight, so I apologize. That was a miscommunication. There was also some language in there around in essence, what it's called high school handbook cell phone policy pilot. The significant change is we're collecting devices at the beginning of class and handing them back, or they're taking them back at the end of class. So in each classroom, you can picture it, a blue cupboard. On the inside of those doors, there's one of those pocket charts. So kids, when they come in, they put their phone in the pocket. The door closes, it's secure for the class. They leave, they take it on the way out. Will there be we were talking about this, will there be some chaos at the beginning? Yes, getting used to a new procedure. It'll be different. But as Paul was talking about, having some experience, within a week or two, kind of settles out, people are used to it. And so that was the substantive change in this pilot. And so it doesn't really change the policy per se, but the handbook language. So currently, they're away during class. They're not allowed to be out unless the teacher says you can use it. You're in video production, or you're in chemistry and you have a bioprobe or something. So that was the change, right? The language that went out yesterday, and it's going to change. Again, talking to Patrick, his apologies for sending that out. And it talked about study halls. So it's all academic times. Phones are collected in a way. It references including in the hallways and in the bathrooms. That means during class periods. So you can't stash your phone somewhere outside, go to class for 5 minutes, and then have to go to the bathroom and go out and use your phone, right? You come into class, you put your phone away. You don't get to take it to the restroom. There was also a reference there about study halls. That applies during study halls as well. And in the email, it said in study halls and in students who have second lunch. So if you don't know what second lunch is, if you have the schedule where you go to the period that includes lunch in the middle, so students go to half a class, then go to lunch, and then come back and have the second half of class. So the original thinking was they collect the phones at the beginning of the period. You go to, you have your half the class, you go to lunch, you come back, and you don't lose time. There was security questions around that, as well as during lunch, we're saying it's okay. There are kids who need the lunch, need the phone during lunch, social time, it's stressful, whatever, they just need their alone time, that's fine. So that piece will be taken back out in the corrected message that goes out. So yeah, so that's the substantive change is everything else, beginning of day, end of day, allowed in the hallway, allowed in free time. It's during class. They're collected now rather than just having to be away. I think I wrote in there too, right? The idea is pilot this out. Patrick is working with the school council, parents, students, and the community to talk through a true bell-to-bell, right, which is certainly what DESE is recommending. I think with the language that's currently being proposed, our policy as it exists would pass muster. There is some language that suggests a true bell-to-bell, collect it in the morning and give it back at the end of the day. So we would have the subtle ability to nuance that. However, there was discussion around maybe the second half of year working through the school council and community forums to try and pilot that out for a few months. Maybe that's a January to March or a February to April, and try a 3-month pilot of that. But that would come back to you because that would be a substantive policy change. In order to give it the full force of policy, that would be a recommendation from that group, the school council, back to test that out. So that is not in play right now. It is just this, where we're collecting them at the beginning of class and handing back at the end. I should say, students are putting them away. We're not having to touch them.
Any questions?
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
It's not in the action thing. That's why I got confused. It's down in the body of the agenda item. I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 student handbooks as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I thought we voted on this earlier.
You voted on just attendance language that would override what you had in the drafts.
Oh,
This is approving the whole handbook.
you have to change my vote on that. I was in favor on that. I'm against this, but anyways, I'm sorry.
I should have asked at the time because I was assuming that's why you were voting no. So yes, that vote, I don't know what does Robert say about this? But you were voting no because of the cell phone language. Or?
I thought I was voting on the handbook policy.
The full handbooks.
Not the handbook policy as it pertains to absenteeism.
Gotcha, okay. We'll figure out how to record that. So yes, this is a vote on the handbooks in total. All the edits were made. The only change will be that attendance language overwrites these drafts. And then the separate handbook, the high school, that was the late change with that cell phone language about collecting them each class, would overwrite what exists in the handbook now.
All those in favor?
And now you're supposed to say all those opposed.
All those opposed?
So just to make sure we saw the hands, it was 8 in favor. One opposed. I swear the minutes are not this hard all the time. So that was 8-1, correct? Okay.
Subcommittee reports.
What's that?
Subcommittee reports. Aaron, policy and advocacy.
Policy and Advocacy met tonight, and I'm sorry, a little unprepared because I was just made chair of the Policy and Advocacy Committee and overthought the fact that I would be speaking tonight. We will be reviewing policies G and H this year. There are a couple items that came in from MASC that we will visit. First, just to make sure that we are in line with expectations and whether or not we need to change anything. Our next meeting, did we decide that was on the 18th?
17th, yep, the next
17th.
regular.
Our next regular meeting is on the 17th.
Thank you, Erin. Personnel and negotiations, Matthew?
We have not had any current meetings, but we have a meeting coming up on Monday, September 8th, to start planning with the 2 units, teachers and IAs.
Finance, Paul Mayette?
We have not met. Our next meeting will be September 4th.
Facilities, Matthew?
We have not had any recent meetings, and we don't have any coming up.
Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Have a nice evening.
Please come back tomorrow.